The Senate Committee on Government Affairs will come to order. Mr. Secretary, please call roll.
Vice Chair Orenshell. Here. Senator Daly. Senator Krasner. Senator Goicoechea. And Chair Flores.
Present. Please mark Senator Daly as absent excused, and should he make his way back, please mark him as present. We do have 4 members present. We have a quorum. Good afternoon. Welcome to everyone to the Hardworking Committee on Government Affairs. And today we're definitely going to live up to that title. I know we have a lot of interest in all 3 bills. However, the Grant Sawyer building, we're going to lose the feed right at 5 because they need to use it for ledge ops. So in an interest of trying, because my understanding, most of the folk that signed in are here for Senate Bill 92, and I want to make sure that they get to participate, whether they're opposed, neutral, or opposition, or in support, excuse me. So we're going to take the bills out of order. We're going to start with Senate Bill 92. After, we'll do Senate Bill 22, and then lastly, Senate Bill 81. And we're specifically doing Senate Bill 81 last because that will also allow for Senator Daly to come back as he is presenting in a different committee. So we're trying to orchestrate this and make this work for everybody. But I just wanted to make sure that you're in our mindset and understand why we're doing this just for the sake of clarity and ensuring that everybody feels that we're on the same page. I want to remind everybody to please silence your cell phone. I'm doing it myself now. As always, please know that we are following along via our laptops. Please don't take it as a sign of disrespect if you see us paying attention to our laptop and not specifically to the speaker. In the interest of time, because again, we anticipate a lot of folk coming in either in support, neutral, or opposition, we're going to limit everyone's time to 2 minutes. Oftentimes, it's wise that if somebody right before you already made a particular point, that maybe you jump to your other points so that you can get those across. And then we're also going to limit testimony in support, opposition, and neutral to 30 minutes each. So we'll have 2 simultaneous clocks running. One will start the clock on support, and then I will simultaneously be running a clock and cut people off at 2 minutes. Please, I'm going to do it across the board. Don't take it as a sign of disrespect, but right at 2 minutes, I'm going to ask you to please stop. I want to remind everybody that you can always submit your testimony via email and/or can just provide a copy of your testimony to our staff, and they'll make sure it gets uploaded and that your remarks are included for the record. Oftentimes, that's a much more efficient way of running a meeting, and so feel free to do that. With that, particularly with those of you who may have not had an opportunity to testify before this committee before, every single time you come forward, you have to press the speak button on the right next to the microphone, and we ask that you state your name for the record each time. And that's just for purposes of keeping minutes. And for those of you who are present, if you provide a card to our committee staff, that's even better, so we can have your contact information should we need it. With that, we have 3 bills, as I previously mentioned, and at this time, we'll go ahead and open up the hearing on Senate Bill 92. Senator Doñate, whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much, Chair Flores, and good afternoon to the members of the Senate Committee on Government Affairs. For the record, my name is Fabian Doñate, and I represent Senate District 10, which is in the heart of Las Vegas. Today, I come before you to speak on Senate Bill 92, which would legitimize street food vendors. I am joined by Mr. Robert Prudy, who is a fellow with the Nevada Latino Legislative Caucus, and members from Make the Road Nevada. And before I begin my remarks, I believe it is important to share my personal story as to why we have arrived at this bill. During the last primary election, many of us who get elected to public office oftentimes rely on our family members to help knock on doors, and I am no different. When I had the chance to go door to door, my mom and my dad both joined me. And it was in that practice that I realized that while my mom and I were doing this, she had shared with me that she had a pre-existing phobia of knocking on doors. Come to find out, the reasoning behind the phobia existed because at an earlier age, my grandmother and my mom would go door to door to sell tamales to make ends meet. It's stories like this and so many others in our community that showcase the spirit of entrepreneurship and the ethic behind our hardworking immigrants. When we aren't afforded the luxury of getting a job, we roll up our sleeves and we find the new means of generating an income to support our families. That's the story of the American dream. It's part of the reason why we're here today, to showcase to some of you the problems that have persisted for this particular population. Today, we have a few remarks prepared to help you understand the issue, so we'll go ahead and proceed with the presentation. I want to speak to you all about the lessons that we have learned from the current state of affairs with respect to our street vending and my strategy to legitimize street food vendors by providing a framework for their opportunity to operate in compliance as a small business and workforce unit. Robert and I will go over some of the background, the limitations of our current regulations, and how my proposed amendment will fix many of the issues that we see moving forward. So at this point, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Purdy, who will share with you some of the issues that we're seeing nationwide and how they're playing out here in Nevada.
Thank you very much, Senator. Good afternoon, Chair Flores and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Robert Purdy, P-U-R-D-Y, and I am a fellow for the Nevada Latino Legislative Caucus. Let's go to the next slide here. If we can jump into the presentation, SB 92 is an act that relates to street food vending, or otherwise known as sidewalk vending, as referred to in this bill. It requires sidewalk vendors to obtain a vendor license and requires the local board of health to adopt certain regulations. Additionally, SB 92 requires the establishment of a task force on safe sidewalk vending. Street vendors in Nevada have increased in numbers across the state as one of the fastest growing states in the union. This is something that many states have come across. Vendors are substantially made up of people from Latino and immigrant backgrounds. And every county and city has different regulations and definitions for vendors, which could cause confusion for people who are simply trying to operate a business. Existing law grants a governing body of a county or city all powers necessary and proper to address matters of local concern, including sidewalk vending, and that is referring to NRS 244.146. Existing law also authorizes a local board of health to adopt regulations relating to food establishments and include sidewalk vending. It's easy to assume reasons behind sidewalk vendors lacking registration. But by having the county or city govern sidewalk vending in its totality, we must learn that street vendors have not been given the proper support to comply with food and licensing regulations. For example, as every county and city have different regulations and definitions for vendors, it makes it very difficult for vendors to comply with food and licensing regulations put on them by the state and other municipalities. Therefore, to help legitimize street vendors, we first need to recognize that safe sidewalk vending is first and foremost an economic issue. Several other states are taking the lead in regulating sidewalk vendors and allowing them to legally operate in growing metropolitan areas. California sidewalk vendors cannot legally obtain permits to operate, so in response, the state passed SB 972. Which does two things. One, decriminalizes the act of operating a mobile food cart without a license, and to create more streamlined approaches to help sidewalk vendors obtain business licenses and health permits. New York City, known for its famous street food culture, continues to have issues with licensing, and so the New York City Council created a street vendor advisory board in 2021 with members from health regulatory agencies, law enforcement, and business interest groups. This advisory board, similar to the bill provides recommendations and advice on laws and regulations pertaining to sidewalk vendors. Arizona, Utah, and Florida have all passed similar legislation that seek to reform regulations for food vendors as well. As Nevada becomes a more popular destination, it's also important to maintain public safety near our gaming properties while also allowing vendors a legal, reasonable way to operate in a residential area. Provide vendors easier access to licensure, acquisition, reforming, or any bureaucratic barriers. We really just want to make sure that these people are allowed to operate the business with minimal but reasonable regulations in place, and also is going to allow access to proper permitting requirements. The other part of this bill is to create the task force on safe sidewalk vending in the Office of the Secretary of State's to review and reform existing laws and regulations, address the needs of sidewalk vendors and mobile units, as well as collaborate with local jurisdictions, businesses, and law enforcement to ensure the safety of vendors and preserve public health of the community as well. In closing, reforming regulations for vendors are necessary. They are a net positive for all members of the community and in support of the spirit of entrepreneurship that makes Nevada such a great state. If you ask the stakeholders about legitimizing sidewalk vendors, there's a general consensus that regulations for sidewalk vendors are necessary because they benefit all stakeholders in the equation. Consumers will have the assurance that health, labor, and safety standards are followed, whereas state institutions will be able to regulate vendors with new set of laws and regulations so that sidewalk vendors will have the opportunity to operate in compliance as well as a small business and workforce unit.
Thank you so much, Robert. Chair Flores, if I may, I also have, Mr. Purdy went over just the national
And if
trend.
I could just have you identify again,
Oh,
please.
yep, Senator Fabian Doñate. Mr. Purdy, describe to you what's happening nationally. It's not a state-specific issue that we're only having in Nevada, but I think it's important for you to also understand what's happening on the ground. So I also have Mr. Rivera who can go ahead and share his perspective.
Thank you so much. Jose Rivera for the record. Chairman Flores and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of Senate Bill 92, which seeks to make it accessible for vendors to obtain a vendor license and stop the criminalization of street vendors. My name is Jose Rivera. I am the environmental justice organizer with Make the Road Nevada, a grassroots foundation that works to empower Latinx and working class communities across Nevada. Legalizing street vending through SB 92 would bring significant benefits to street vendors and all stakeholders. Consumers will have regulations that protect their health, and street vendors will have the opportunity to continue to earn a decent living. Legalizing street vending also provides entrepreneurs with a low-cost entry into the marketplace, creating economic opportunities for those who may not have the resources to start a brick-and-mortar business. For example, California's Senate Bill 946, the Safe Sidewalk Vending Act, resulted in a significant increase in street vendors and helped to create new businesses. By following their example, Nevada can realize similar benefits by passing SB 92. Now, speaking as an organizer, I have been able to meet with a list of 50 to 60 street vendors in the past few weeks, and a majority of their concerns are that our street vendors are afraid of being constantly harassed by by authorities. I have spoken to vendors who have been very concerned about Southern Nevada Health District spying on them at times, trying to stalk them. And so a lot of these things could be prevented if we had a bill or a law that would legalize street vending in order for them to become, to be able to apply for a license. Our vendors are in support of licenses. They're in support of it. The only issue is making it accessible for our vendors to be able to provide some type of income for their families. Additionally, Senate Bill 92 recognizes the fundamental rights of street vendors to earn a living and contribute to their communities. Many street vendors are immigrants or people from marginalized communities who rely on this form of income to support themselves and their marginalized families. Legalizing street vending not only protects their livelihoods, but also reduces the risk of fines, arrest, and even deportation. Now, furthermore, street vendors often provide unique and culturally relevant products and services that are not found in traditional retail settings. By supporting Senate Bill 92, Nevada can promote entrepreneurship and cultural diversity, leading to positive social and economic outcomes. I urge the Government Affairs Committee to support SB 92. By legalizing street vending, we not only remove the unjust criminalization of a historic and vital practice in immigrant communities, but also promote economic economic and cultural diversity that strengthens our neighborhoods. This bill is not just about street vending, but about recognizing and affirming the importance of immigrant entrepreneurship, cultural expression, and economic opportunity. I urge you to seize this opportunity to support our communities and ensure a more just and equitable future for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair Flores. Senator Doñate, for the record. At this time, I will go ahead and refer the committee members to the amendment that is on Nellis for your access if you want to, before we go into the questions, and if there's any irregularities that I can address. As you know, this is a work in progress, and we are hopeful that we can continue negotiations with our community stakeholders and businesses throughout the state to reach an agreement once this hearing is complete. I have vowed to do that at least post-hearing, and I recognize that that's some of the sentiments that we'll hear later today. We were also asked to clarify what unduly restrictive versus restrictive regulations might entail under my interpretation. I believe that common sense can be used in this section. To me, unduly restrictive would be an ordinance passed by a city council that would only allow street food vendors to operate in a park between the hours of 4 to 5 p.m. every other Tuesday. That's unreasonable. I think that's all something that we can all agree. In addition to that, as you will hear today, there is broad community support for this proposal. Street food vendors are working class people. They don't have the opportunity to hire a lobbyist or pay for their advocacy. They're everyday individuals that seek to provide for their families and earn an honest and fair income just like anyone else. We are happy to address any questions from the committee members regarding the bill language, and we thank you all for your time today.
And thank you all three for the presentation, and also thank you, Senator Doñate. I know you've been working with everyone, and I know we don't have consensus yet, but I think everybody can agree that at some point you've had a conversation with them and tried to find common ground on a rather complex conversation. So I appreciate that. With that, we'll open it up to questions. Members, we'll start off with Senator Goycochea, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, in looking through the bill, Senator, I see a requirement that you at least have a Nevada business license, and there also is, I believe, the ability for a local government to impose some kind of a licensure. And then I'm going to get kind of ugly here. I don't see anything about collecting taxes. If you go to McDonald's or Wendy's, there's sales tax involved. Are we waiving that, or how are you going to address that?
Thank you so much, Senator Goycochea. Senator Doñate, for the records. So that is correct. That regulation will stay in place, right? We're not changing anything in terms of the requirements to operate a business, to start a business, and to pay taxes, and therefore, what we have encountered with the folks that do practice as street food vendors is that oftentimes they don't have the income, or there are barriers to applying for those business licenses. And I'll be very transparent. So the bill right now only focuses on Washoe and Clark County. If you were a street food vendor, I can guarantee that there are parts of town in Las Vegas that you could find where you could cross the street and you might find yourself either in unincorporated Clark County or in the city of North Las Vegas or in the city of Las Vegas. And that becomes very confusing as to which license applies to you and so forth, right? And I think that's, if you take it from the perspective of in Northern Nevada, you might have someone that is in the city of Sparks, then goes to the city of Reno, and maybe they want to come down to Carson City because it's all in close proximity. I think the goal that we have through creating that task force is that establishing uniformity for at least the vendors that find themselves in this situation. And it's an issue that it's not just in street food vending that we're encountering. We're also encountering it with food trucks as well. So I think it's the uniformity and making sure that we're reducing the barriers to apply for the license so that they can be in compliance.
Right, I thank you. And just kind of a quick follow-up. Now, you're also saying food trucks as well, but I know they're pretty highly regulated, or can be a food truck, even down to the extent you have to have a restroom. And so I'm sure we don't want to get that deep. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Goycochea. Through you, Chair, Senator Doñate. Yeah, that is not a part of this bill. That is not something that is in this proposal. Right now, we're only looking for street food vending and making sure that's uniform. That is a potential issue that's also arising that we can look at in further years, but that is not a part of the bill. I was just using that as an anecdote. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Senator Doñate, for bringing this bill. And, as you mentioned, crossing a street down in Clark County, you could go from unincorporated Clark County to the city of Las Vegas, another part of town, you could cross the street and go from, city of Las Vegas, city of North Las Vegas. And I'm wondering if this bill, or if, an amended version of this bill passes, you talked about that uniformity. Do you think that uniformity could lead not only to more openness and in terms of the sidewalk vendors being willing to work with health officials and health authorities, but greater protections for the public rather than this current kind of checkerboard of different ordinances, depending on what side of the street you're on in, Washoe County and Clark County?
Thank you so much, Senator Orenshaw. Senator Doñate, for the record, absolutely. I think that's part of the sentiment that we've heard from talking with street food vendors themselves. I'm going to be openly transparent, and I don't take these comments lightly because I was going to reserve them for my closing remarks. After having that experience with my own mother, I went on a tour to see what was the reverse. And what occurs in the situation that I was there with is the health district officers, the workers that I was with, would approach these street food vendors. Particularly, they would find them in hotspot areas conveniently down the street from my house. And what we would do is we would circle around. As soon as we identify them, we would stop and we would let them know, I'm sorry, you do not have the right permitting for this. And they would take the equipment from them. So it would be the chests that they have for the street cone and so forth. And they would take it from them and they would explain, after giving them a pamphlet, that to get this back, you have to pay $100 and you have to go back to the health district. Now, that might seem like, okay, it's fine. The question that I asked myself was, why do we keep, and some of these folks were, as you would call, quote, repeat offenders, right? Why do they keep falling into this circumstance where they're not able to apply further requirements in terms of either for business licenses or for food permits? And the reality is, we haven't done a good job at meeting folks where they're at. And these barriers exist. I believe in an effort to protect public health, we have to make it as easy as possible for them to comply so that we can protect public health, so that we can educate and do the appropriate outreach in an effort to support the entire community.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the bill. Thank you, Chair.
And Senator Doñate, if you could walk the committee through some of the conversations you've had and where you've reached an amendment, even what you've proposed now, I think it's fair to that he put that on the record because you've been working with a lot of folk. Your bill started here. You've narrowed it down, all in an effort to collaborate and work with everybody. I understand that there's still opposition, but I want folk to understand that it's not that you've kind of forced this on anyone. You really have been listening to folk, and you've taken some of that feedback, and you've tried to find common ground. So if you could just walk us through a little bit of what you've done there, please.
Sure. Thank you so much, Chair Flores. Senator Doñate, for the record. I'll have Tony also, if he wants to chime in. I think it's important to have Mr. Ramirez speak on that. But in general, I think, so here's an issue that would be present in the amendment, right? We find ourselves in certain areas of town, specifically in Las Vegas. I represent the Las Vegas Strip, where perhaps these street food vendors could pose as a public safety issue for the ingress and egress as part of events. That is something that we have been amenable to addressing to preserve and protect some of the businesses that we have. At the end of the day, we are a tourist destination, and we want to make sure that we're adhering to the high standards that we have. The broad reality is that many of these street food vendors are in residential areas, and so that is something that we have tried to balance. We want to protect brick and mortar restaurants and organizations, which is fine because we recognize that many of these folks are on the corner of your street by your house, right? And I think in general what we will see is that at least in parts of East Las Vegas where I grew up, this is an acceptable part, right? Many folks understand that to be a part of our community, and we have worked diligently, not just with the health district, but with local city jurisdictions and counties to address some of the concerns. And we've made amendments to what the task force would entail, because while we may have one proposition right now for this bill, the work does not stop there. We have to make changes to our food regulations. We have to pass ordinances to help pave the way for these people to operate safely. And I think that's the long-term goal that we see in the task force. And you'll hear testimony today that we've graciously asked the Secretary of State's office to take this on, because in retrospect, they do carry the authority to look at business licenses in general. And in an effort to maintain uniformity for these particular vendors, that is an effort where the state can step in. But I'll also let Mr. Ramirez speak if he wants to mention anything else.
Yeah, so Chair Flores, rest of the committee, Antonio Ramirez for the record. Some of the areas where we did find consensus was setting health standards. We added a 3-tiered system. And a couple other areas were carve-out areas like the strip, such as the senator had mentioned, as well as protecting not only our vendors, but pedestrians from excluding certain areas like high-traffic areas and high pedestrian areas.
And Chair Flores, Senator Duñate for the record, one last comment. The bill as written includes merchandise, but we have limited the scope in an effort to help streamline this easier for everyone to only look at street food vending. And that itself was a big ask for our community members because many of them do sell flowers or other items, but we felt that as the highest priority that we've seen on the news, and for many of these folks that practice, street food vending is the one that makes the most sense. And so we've been amenable to that, and we will continue to work with stakeholders.
And thank you again both for working with everybody. Senator Krasner, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation, Senator Donate. So I just have some concerns. You mentioned that some of the roaming street vendors were concerned about the Board of Health following them around. But I mean, the Board of Health is there to protect citizens who purchase food from getting foodborne illnesses. How would we know? I see in Section 25 you are recommending that there's a new section for these roaming vendors, but how would someone like me who's walking on the street and wants to stop and buy food from one of these roaming vendors, how would I know if they're certified or not? Are they going to have a tag like restaurants have to have that says, A rated and
Thank you so much, Senator Krasner. Senator Duñate for the record. So I think this is part where my public health background comes into play, which is I believe that in an effort to protect public health, if we do have limited resources, first of all, we should prioritize and create a level of tiers as to what is low public health risk and what is high public health risk. We want to prioritize our efforts to the higher risk areas because, for instance, I'll make an equivalence. So a restaurant, right, which has commercial kitchens can serve more people in 1 hour than a guy who's selling street corn on the corner. That is a low public health risk versus a restaurant that can serve more people. Now, we do have cases, right, where that level of sophistication rises. And of course, what we've identified is it might not make sense in terms of public safety, allowing these folks in certain parts of town, which is what we're working on to address. But what I do see as part, and this is something that we have in the proposed amendment, is creating a certification process so that the health district can work and collaborate and conduct the outreach so that we can keep, essentially, we can conduct the education as to what they can do to better serve the folks that purchase from them, whether it's hand washing, et cetera, because that's not happening right now. Right now, what they do is, here's a pamphlet, and then, sorry, like, we'll take the corn from you. And it's unfair to everyone, right? It's unfair to our public health workers because they deserve the infrastructure to address and educate the community on public health, and the street food vendors themselves deserve the education. The answer that I have come to within the realization that I've come to within the last year is there's no happy medium. You either completely outlaw them or you regulate and you come to this proposal. And the fact of the matter is you will never completely outlaw them. We can pass regulations, we can create more funding for the health district officers, for law enforcement, but we're never going to be able to get rid of them because they're a part of our culture, they're a part of our community. I come from the perspective that we should create pathways to legitimize and respect their work so that we can come to an agreement to better serve public health.
Can I have a quick follow-up? Thank
Please
you.
follow up.
And I appreciate that, Senator Donate. I guess I'm thinking like, what if it was me and I wanted to buy some of the food? How would I know? If I go to a restaurant and I see they have an A rating, I know that they're clean and the back behind the kitchen is clean and it's safe for my family and I to buy food there, how would I know if this food from these roaming street vendors is safe and clean, or if it's actually what it's what it says it is? How do I know it's the type of meat they say it is? Or I don't know about I worry about the cleanliness and the health standards, and where do they wash their hands if they're roaming? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Krasner. Through you, Chair, Senator Duñate, for the record. In the proposed amendment, we have that the health districts and health departments will have expressed authority to create a certificate program underneath pre-existing permitting structures to assist in outreach and educational efforts. So the task force is going to be created to create what that could look like in terms of a grading scale, the same way that we do for restaurants. So that will happen within the next few years. And then in the meantime, we want to create what you would consider a lower tier, right? A certificate program, so that you can identify if you wanted to purchase from them, because that doesn't exist right now. It's either you have the permit or you don't, right? So there is that public health risk exists right now, but in the amendment, we want to create a lower tier that's more accessible, that can help us understand and keep track of where we're at right now, and then in the long term, we can help them get to the full license or the full permitting process. Yeah.
Members, any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite those wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 92 to come forward. What we'll do in the interest of fairness, what I'll do is we'll start with Las Vegas. Anybody wishing to testify in support in Las Vegas, but also if you're wishing to testify in support here in Carson City, could you please come forward? Fill up all 3 seats. And also in Las Vegas, we'll fill up all 3 seats. Ready, please, and I'll run the 2 minutes. So again, just for the sake of efficiency and transparency, right when the first speaker starts in Las Vegas, we'll start the timer for 30 minutes. I will then simultaneously be running a 2-minute timer, and I'll be cutting you off every 2 minutes. Again, please don't take that as a sign of disrespect. With that, we'll start with Las Vegas. Whoever wishes to go first, please.
Chairman Flores and members of the committee, thank you so much. Ronald Najarro, for the record. I'm the State Director for Americans for Prosperity Nevada. And thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of SB 92. On behalf of the more than 96,000 activists across the great state of Nevada, many of them behind me, we urge you to support Senate Bill 92, which would legalize street vending as an economic vehicle in pursuit of the American dream. Many hardworking Nevadans are still feeling the negative effects of a once-in-a-generation pandemic that threatened the livelihood and the budgets of thousands of Nevada families. Now more than ever, Nevadans have sought alternative solutions such as street vending to help address these concerns. As we look toward the future, we must build an economy that works for everyone and makes it easier, not harder, for individuals to create economic opportunities for themselves and their families. We believe that people are capable of extraordinary things when they're given the freedom and opportunity to do so, and that is what this bill is about. We are better off when more people, not less, engage in the exchange of goods and services. Since the founding of our great nation, economic enterprise has been the catalyst for building one of the most strongest and most vibrant economy the world has ever known. Competition in the marketplace allows economies to grow and diversify, leading to more jobs and more startups to emerge. A win for us all. Governments, federal, state, or in this case, local, should not be allowed to be utilized by established businesses to protect their interests, and in doing so, diminish the opportunities for other Nevadans seeking to equally access them. Local governments should not pick winners and losers in the marketplace of free enterprise, but rather work to protect everyone's ability to access free enterprise. Can you imagine what would have happened if Bill Gates was told by government he could not innovate and create Microsoft from his own garage? Who's to say that these local street vendors are not the next great restaurant chains that provides thousands of jobs here in the state of Nevada? Who's to say that? For these reasons, I urge you to support SB 92, and in doing so, support people's individual potential to create a better future for themselves.
And with that, we
One
just
that
hit the 2-minute
allows
mark.
established businesses to grow through
I'm gonna have
competition
to
and
cut you
offers
off.
street vendors the ability to become an established business of their own.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Appreciate it. Please.
Good afternoon, Chairman Flores and members of the committee. My name is Maggie Salas Crespo, and I serve as the Deputy Secretary of State for Southern Nevada. On behalf of Secretary Francisco V. Aguilar, I would like to share our support for Senate Bill 92 and the creation of the Task Force on Sidewalk Vending within the Office of the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State's office is the first stop for business registration, and we are committed to and take our responsibility to the business community seriously, especially for those coming from underserved populations. The Secretary of State understands the vital role that small businesses and entrepreneurs play in Nevada's economy and believes that the state should be a resource for those seeking to start or legitimize their business. This includes finding ways to give access to resources and capital to our entrepreneurs as opposed to continuously punishing them for pursuing their business goals. Entrepreneurs have to start somewhere, and we believe this measure gives sidewalk vendors the opportunity to do so, while allowing the task force to address other issues facing this industry and giving these workers a seat at the table. As prescribed by Senate Bill 92, the task force on sidewalk vending would bring interested parties to the table to review existing state and local law related to sidewalk vending and make recommendations to improve these laws with the focus of legalizing and removing unnecessary barriers for sidewalk vending, while also protecting the public health, safety, and wellness of Nevadans. This bill falls right in line with the Secretary's vision to improve processes for our business community to ensure their success in Nevada, and we welcome the decision to house this task force within our office. We know the entrepreneurship leads to bigger businesses, but with little access to capital and other resources, it's difficult for these businesses to grow. If we want Nevada to be business friendly, it should be friendly to businesses of all kinds, no matter their size. We look forward to working with interested parties on these issues, and thank you so much for your time. I'm available for any questions legislators may have following this meeting. Thank you.
And thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Derek Washington. I'm chairman of the Stonewall Democrats of Southern Nevada and also chairman of the Black Democratic Empowerment Project. And before I start with my testimony, I want to say thank you all. You've got a packed room here. Why? Because you're actually doing something for the people, and I really appreciate it. I wholeheartedly support SB 92. I do have two concerns. One is about the health concerns. Who will have liability if someone does get sick or someone dies from street food vended by the folks that we're talking about here? Will the state take care of that? But my main question and my main concern is there's a lot of government regulations still in this, and a lot of these folks are undocumented. So what do you have that will make sure that them applying for licenses won't lead a direct pipeline to ICE or something like that? Really, that's my main concern, is the safety of these folks from being taken away by law enforcement just for trying to have a living. And my last thing I want to say is there's nothing better than a Las Vegas elote. Thank you.
And thank you. And now we'll come back to Carson City, and we'll just go 3 and 3. Please. Whoever wishes to go first.
Wiz Rizar with American for Prosperity, WIZROUZARD, Deputy State Director. I am super proud to stand here and support this bill and applaud the efforts of the sponsors for really addressing a big problem, but more importantly, creating an economic vehicle for Nevadans to really access that prosperity, that American dream. In addressing this bill, as Derek said, we saw a lot of regulations, and for us, we advocate free market principles, but above all else, we advocate equal opportunity to economic freedom. And this bill is one of those bills that really help us take that step in the right direction. I'm a history guy, and I love reading, and I thought about the 1862 Homestead Act, where as we were moving out west, a big part of that was to ensure not only do we expand our territory, but more importantly, we expand our...
You are in the meeting now.
Oh, nice. Thank you. But for us to expand economic opportunity throughout the state. And the individuals that actually had the right to this were individuals who were also in the process of becoming citizens. And that's what Nevada should be in this bill, really puts that in the forefront. A yes on this bill protects the American dream. A yes on this bill is ensure that every Nevadan, including their posterity, have the ability to go out and have their actual work and their talents protected. The senators have done an amazing job. As some of my colleagues have said, this creates opportunities that we believe is in the right direction, and we look forward to continuously supporting this bill throughout this endeavor. Thank you.
And thank you. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman Flores. For the record, my name is Rico Ocampo. I am the lead organizer for Make the Road Nevada, and I'm here today to support SB 92, which would legalize and decriminalize street vending in Nevada. I want to share with you the story of a street vendor that I met while doing outreach. I might be wearing a suit today, but I will never turn down the opportunity to go out into the field and meet with people directly and meet them at where they're at. This particular street vendor had been selling in the same spot in North Las Vegas for over 3 years. And during our interaction, he confided in us that many street vendors were afraid. They were afraid to come out of the shadows for fear of being criminalized. That's the system that we have in place right now. It was only after our second meeting with him that he began to open up and share his story. And as a DACA recipient myself, I understand the fear and uncertainty that comes with revealing one's immigration status. It's a life-changing decision that cannot be undone. The street vendors in his network face similar challenges. But despite these challenges, they still look out for one another. And he even mentioned to me that when one of them is trying to start up their business, they pitch in to help them buy their equipment. The street vendor expressed a willingness to collaborate with the Southern Nevada Health District and obtain the necessary permits to operate legally. However, as undocumented individuals, they are unable to obtain the necessary licenses to operate legally due to their immigration status, which limits their ability to fully participate in the economy and provide for themselves and their families. It is important to recognize that street vendors are not only business owners, but also cultural ambassadors who preserve and share their heritage through their cuisine and craft. I urge you to take the opportunity to help create a more just and equitable Nevada by supporting SB 92. Together, we can ensure that street vendors have the support and resources they need to thrive and succeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Buenas tardes, estimados respetados legisladores. Mi nombre es Omar Lemoga, soy colombiano. Hace 3 años migré a los Estados Unidos. Soy empresario y actualmente colaboro con Make the Road Nevada. Todos los días salimos a las calles a hablar con la comunidad sobre los problemas que tienen. Y todos deseamos salir adelante, aprovechar las oportunidades que este país nos da. Queremos y creemos que aprovechen la oportunidad que en este momento tienen para manejar, para controlar una situación que está creciendo día a día. Muchas personas salen a las calles a ganarse la vida y nosotros solo queremos una regla clara, solo queremos una oportunidad para salir adelante. Creo que es la oportunidad también de mantener a Nevada en ese sitial de un estado moderno y hay un elemento que quiero compartir en mi testimonio que es el elemento cultural. Si nos conocemos, tanto los que llegamos como los que están acá, vamos a vivir mucho mejor. Y creo que cuando un elotero sale a la calle a compartir su cultura gastronómica, nos estamos integrando más. Ese es mi testimonio. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Just for the sake of clarity, I would like, for the record, to reflect, the gentleman's name is Omar Lemoga. He's originally from Colombia. He's an entrepreneur, and he's been incredibly involved with Make the Road. And he wanted to emphasize that there is a cultural element to food that brings people together, and that through food we are united and we get to know each other better. He is eager to continue to follow the rules. He just wants one clear rule across the state so that we understand we all play by the same rules, and we appreciate his testimony. Gracias. With that, anybody else wishing to testify in support, if you could please come forward, fill up the seats here in Carson City, and with that, we'll go back to Las Vegas. Whoever wishes to go next.
Good afternoon. Dear members of the Senate committee, my name is Eddie Diaz. As the Strategic Director for the Libre Initiative, an organization committed to empowering and educating the Latino community here in Nevada and all across the country, I come before you in support of Senate Bill 92. Latinos, like many others, are still struggling with the negative impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and the record high inflation. The rising prices of gasoline, rent, utilities, and groceries have had a negative economic impact on many families. Nevadans across the states are looking for alternatives to counter these negative economic impacts and provide for their family. An option to make that extra income is street food vending. As Latinos in Nevada, we have a strong entrepreneurship spirit. On the national level, nearly 1 in 4 new businesses are Hispanic-owned, making the community one that contributes greatly to the economic progress and opportunity to the state of Nevada, as well as the entire country. With this entrepreneurial spirit and proven success, Latinos in Nevada want to be able to start our own businesses, to support our families and the larger community within our state. Street vendors do both. They're able to earn a living and go directly to where the community is. That is why street food vendors hold a special place in the hearts of many. Senate Bill 92 and its discriminalization of street vendors in our state is a good first step toward allowing for a more dynamic local economy and removing unnecessary barriers to success. Selling food on the street should not be a crime, and people should not be fearful of this practice. SB 92 in many ways hopes to streamline the licensing process and further reduce vendor exploitation. SB 92 is a great starting point to open opportunities for many Nevadans, whether it's street food vending, food trucks, or brick-and-mortar restaurants. We should work to have an economic system that makes it easier to grab hold of the economic ladder and rise. Latinos, like everyone else, should have the ability to succeed and contribute to their communities and live meaningful lives, regardless of their starting point. We at the Libre Initiative Nevada chapter support the efforts to streamline, simplify, and standardize the licensure process and are optimistic that this legislation is the first step toward removing unnecessary barriers and finesse associated with sidewalk vendors.
And sir, we've hit the 2
these efforts
minutes.
should not stop with Senate Bill 92. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And please, I want to remind anybody that I cut off, please submit your testimony to our committee staff, and I'll make sure it gets uploaded. Whoever wishes to go next in Las Vegas.
Hello, my name is Ariana Valenzuela. My family owns Bonito Michoacan of 26 years, and after talking to my family about this, we agree and support SB 92. We believe that everybody deserves the equal opportunity. Making it more accessible to obtain licenses will stop criminalization, as well as making it safer for others to eat there. We believe in making it easier rather than harder for everyone to accomplish their dreams and goals with their small businesses. We are dealing with hard times. This is also going to help our struggling economy. Some people can't afford food trucks or a restaurant and have to start somewhere. We know how hard it is and believe everyone deserves the opportunity to get out there and put in the hard work just like everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. Whoever wishes to go next in Las Vegas.
Good afternoon, Senate Committee. My name is Randall Jefferson, and I'm activist for American for Prosperity. As a consumer, we want to find faster, cheaper options when it comes to food. As a college student, I may not always be able to afford the option of going to a restaurant, nor will I have the time. Street vendors play a pivotal role in providing an alternative that is economically feasible for someone like me that is a college student on a budget. And at the same time, I would be able to support a member in my community, and that makes me feel good. So I'm asking you to please support SB 92.
And thank you for your testimony. We'll come back to Carson City. Please.
Marco Rauda, for the record. To the chair, I just want to say that this bill gives us an amazing opportunity to allow people that are coming from other countries and also people that are in this country to be able to continue to make a living for themselves. I don't often find myself in the same place as the Libre Initiative and Americans for Prosperity, but yet here we are advocating for people that need to be advocated for. So I urge this committee to please pass this bill when given the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we go back to Las Vegas, I would like to give an opportunity for those who have called in to also get an opportunity to participate in this process. BPS, do we have anybody on the line waiting to testify in support of Senate Bill 92?
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in support of SB 92, please press star 9 now on your phone to take your place in the queue.
Hello, my name is Carla Sanchez, and I am in support of Senate Bill 92. My mother was a street vendor, and I have memories of my siblings and I knocking doors every day after school. We had to give that up due to the constant threats that we received. I believe street vendors should be able to make a living without being criminalized. I want to thank Senator Doñate, Senator Flores, and Make the Road for bringing this bill to the legislature. Thank you.
And thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 510, please continue.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, sir, please continue.
Well, yes, I'm William Graham Carter. I've lived around Roth since I was 4 years old. I'm probably the oldest person in the room. I've lived here 5 times. And my sister was partners in the carbon cart on the Strip, and her attitude towards competition was, build a restaurant next door, it's going to help us. The only food poisoning I've heard of, through the grapevine, is from fancy restaurants. I've never heard of anybody getting food poisoning from a roach coach or a street vendor. Also, we left here when I was 10 years old and went to Bogota, Colombia, where there's lots of street vendors. I remember the posters and the stuff and I speak Spanish like that. I loved hearing Colombian Spanish. It's very eloquent. I want to put some ideas out about thinking outside the box. I've lived in Mariposa, California, which means butterfly, for 6 years. They don't have business licenses. It's the mother of all counties. All the counties came forth from Mariposa County, and businesses flourish. That's the think outside the box idea. Another is perhaps rather than charge people for health classes, you could pay them $10 to show up and take a health class on sanitation. And if they have a card, when the cops come by, they give them a little bottle of hand sanitizer and some paper towels. I think that government has kind of developed an adversarial attitude towards business, and I'd like to see an end to that. I'm a friend of AFP, Americans for Prosperity, and my own organization is American Truth Alliance. And thank you for this. You moving in this direction really lifts my heart. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. BPS, next caller, please.
If you recently just joined us, we are currently taking testimony in support of SB 92. To testify in support, please press star 9 now on your phone. Chair, you have no one else wishing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you. We'll go back to Las Vegas.
Good afternoon, members of Government Affairs Committee. My name is Mauricio Garcia Lopez, Mauricio Garcia Lopez. I grew up in Las Vegas Senate District 2 and have lived here for over 20 years. I am a canvasser with Make the Road Nevada. In my job, I have the opportunity to talk to hundreds of people every week about the issues they care about the most. I help them get involved in the legislative process. I'm here today to express my strong support for SB 92, which would legitimize street vendors. I have seen firsthand the unfair treatment towards street vendors. As a son of a former street vendor, I witnessed how my parents faced some horrific experiences and humiliations. I was 7 years old when I saw the police throw away my parents' fruit that put food on our table and a roof over our heads. I felt confused and scared that they were going to separate my family. My parents sold oranges because it was a means of survival. SB 92 would allow hardworking people like my parents with opportunities to start their own business and earn a living safely with the ability to obtain appropriate licenses and certifications. All people, regardless of immigration status, deserve to live with dignity and respect. I hope SB 92 passes so that street vendors are not treated like criminals the way my parents were treated for trying to make a living. Chairman Flores and members of the Government Affairs Committee, thank you for hearing my testimony. I urge you to take a stand for the dignity and rights of street vendors in Nevada, passing SB 92.
And thank you for your testimony. Whoever wishes to go next in Las Vegas.
My name is Randy Keardy. I'm an advocate for Americans for Prosperity, and I support SB 92 because I understand that a lot of families are struggling to put food on their table, gas in their car, or even a roof over their head. We don't know the financial challenges that these individuals are facing, but I'm sure many of us have been through similar situations. These people have found opportunities in selling their product to their communities. If this is making ends meet for families, who are we to reject economic opportunity? I support SB 92 because making a living should not be a crime.
Thank you. Next person, please, in Las Vegas.
Hello, my name is Monse Perdomo, and I'm an advocate for the Libre Initiative. And I just want to say I support SB 92 because I just want to share my family story. So when I was younger, my uncle, he used to be a street vendor, and I remember going out with him and my cousin selling his corn. And I remember him saying, oh, we can't go to the park or we can't go outside of our streets because he was too scared to be, say, encountered with authorities and such. So I remember him coming home because I used to live with them, and he would be stressed. He wouldn't be able to get enough money. He was stressed about not paying food for us. He was stressed about not paying rent. He was stressed about everything. And I don't think people should be living like that. I think it would, supporting SB 92, it would be making a lot of people's lives easier. And just, I support SB 92. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next person wishing to testify in support in Las Vegas.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Victor Macias, and I am an advocate for the Libre Initiative, and I support the SB 92 because personally I have family that have migrated here to the United States, and seeing them how they had to work in order for us to get an education, in order for us to have food on our table, it really made a change, and it really had them scared going outside too much too, just because of the encounter of ICE or the encounter of an authority. They went out and sell tamales. My family actually sold tamales. So that's why I support SB 92. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. Next person in Las Vegas, please.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. In many ways, food vending, my name is Aaron Ibarra, Aaron. In many ways, food vending is a cultural act. While food vending may be foreign to us here in the eyes of the current law, it's been a part of the culture here in Las Vegas for years. I'm born and raised here, and some of my fondest memories have been getting an elote or a raspado after my dad's soccer game, or helping my tias at their corner stand. To this day, I still get excited when I hear the iconic honk of an elotero moving by my cul-de-sac. So I don't think it's beneficial to continue to vilify something that so many of your constituents hold fondly and revere. I think it's important to continue to try to find pathways to make food vending legal so that we can continue to promote economic opportunity and promote what at the end of the day is the spirit of entrepreneurship, which is what the United States was based off of. So I urge y'all to support this bill, and I thank Senator Doñate for bringing this forward.
Thank you for your testimony. Next speaker, please.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Amari Ibarra, and I'm an advocate for Americans for Prosperity. Coming out of a recent pandemic, Nevadans are still struggling to make end meet. Some individuals have seen street vending as an opportunity to make a decent living by providing affordable and accessible meals to their local community. This boosts and diversity local economies, which we should all be supportive of. However, they are too far off, often harassed by local authorities and face red tapes that act as barriers to their economic opportunities. SB 92 decriminalization for street vending is too important to overlook. This punishment of people trying to make ends meet has to end. Please support SB 92. Thank you for listening.
And thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Gabriela Escudero. I'm here with Libre Initiative, and I am in support of the SB 92. When I was younger, I seen my family work so hard, and I saw just everything that they would do, and it just really put a desire in my heart to go after entrepreneurship. And after I started seeking entrepreneurship, I realized just the struggle that it was, but this bill right here would help so many people, so many families, so many children, and the city of Las Vegas. So therefore, I'm in support of SB 92. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. I am PJ Belanger, Belanger, master networker, connector, activist, mentor, grandma here in town. I'd like to first say there's nothing virtuous about prioritizing health over economic freedom. They need to be equally as important. And I'd like to give you a kiss. Keep it simple, silly. Let's just find a way to help these people to continue to make a living for their families. We don't want to continue to make everybody in town criminals. Every different category of life in this town has become so overregulated that you're just criminalizing all of these people. And we want to stop doing that. Street vending is a way to make a living, and we're asking for you to support Nevadans to, make it simple for them to continue to make a living and support themselves and their families, and stop putting into law ways to fine people. Stop putting into law ways to make things harder for our community. We want to make things simpler. So let's kiss each other. Keep it simple, silly.
And thank you for your testimony. We are now at 29 minutes and 12 seconds. I don't know if anybody would like to occupy the remaining 40 seconds. I would say, in an interest of capturing everybody who is in support, and we'll just let the record reflect, if you are in support of Senate Bill 92 in Las Vegas and have not had an opportunity to testify, if you could just please rise so that we could acknowledge you. If you are in support of Senate Bill 92 and you have not had an opportunity to testify, just so that the folk present can see just how much interest was generated. And I will say that we had approximately 50 people sign in support in the documents that I have in front of me. So please have a seat. Thank you for joining us. Now we'll do the same thing. We will start the timer once the first speaker commences. With those wishing to speak in opposition of Senate Bill 92, if we could have those of you in Carson City please come forward. Please occupy all 3 seats. If anybody is wishing to speak in opposition in Las Vegas, if you could please also come forward and occupy all 3 seats. Because we already have the seats filled in Carson, we will go with Carson. We'll do 3 and 3, and then we'll go to the phones. Good afternoon. Welcome, whoever wishes to go first.
Good afternoon, Chair Flores and the Senate Committee on Government Affairs. My name is Chris Reese. It's R-I-E-S, and I represent the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. I come before you today in opposition of SB 92 as written. I want to note that the presentation is focused on a singular residential street vending. However, this is only half of the issue that we're seeing. SB 92 looks to decriminalize illegal street vending across the board. In doing so, officers would not be able to compel any person to identify themselves, making it nearly impossible to issue a citation, and thus eliminating any incentive to stop unregulated vending in residential areas or in the resort corridor. It is our experience that illegal street vendors create chaos and uncontrollable crowds in the resort corridor and in high pedestrian areas. Oftentimes, 50 to 75 carts are located in these areas. This creates a traffic safety hazard with pedestrians having to traverse busy roadways because the vendor carts are taking up the entire sidewalk. In addition, many of these carts have propane tanks. This obviously poses a homeland security issue. For this reason, it would be unsafe to not have distance restrictions between these vendors, as well as to not restrict overall number of licenses or permits issued to the vendors. Additionally, vendors have been found by LVMPD to sell illicit narcotics, counterfeit merchandise, illegally possess firearms, and oftentimes are victims of human trafficking. As for new licensure of this type of activity, most of the vendors we encounter are out of state, and it would be difficult for them to comply with the regulations or remedy a citation. This is not even mentioning the aggressiveness that we have seen vendors be with pedestrians they are trying to force their products onto, other vendors they are competing against, and violence towards police officers. Lastly, we are a sort of clearinghouse for complaints. Several businesses have been vocal about their opposition to these vendors, citing that these vendors do not get licensed, pay taxes, adhere to food safety standards, and on and on. To be clear, our primary
With that,
goal
we just hit
is
the 2-minute
education,
mark.
and the last resort would be to arrest the vendor.
Thank
you,
you.
sir.
And please, if you could provide your testimony to the committee staff, and I'm sure they'll upload that for everybody to be able to read through.
Thanks, sir.
Please, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Flores, Vice Chair Orenshaw, members of the committee. Joanna Jacob on behalf of Clark County. We are opposed to the bill as written. I do want to put on the record that I have been working with Senator Donate and the bill and Mr. Ramirez from Make the Road on an amendment, because while we are not opposed to regulation of this very important business type for our community, we also have an obligation in Clark County to do equal protection for all businesses that we regulate, meaning we have to treat businesses to the extent that we can like other situated businesses, and that is some of our concern. When we see language like that in Section 9, which is really requiring that our ordinance must not contain certain language, then later in Section 9, subsection 2 says that we can. For example, Section 9, sub 1 says we cannot prohibit operation within a specific neighborhood or area. And then Section 9, sub 2 says that we can restrict in certain neighborhoods and area. I know I can speak from experience. When we create a program in legislation and then we have to take it home to implement it, we have to explain it to the community, and I understand and hear the concerns about having a very clear standard of rules, and that is what we are also working towards as well. We are going to work with Senator Donate also on how to enforce, if there are enforcement measures that are in here, as Detective Reese suggested, that there is probably something that we need to do to update this. It's not very clear about if we have violations of the permitted ordinance versus an unpermitted activity and what that means on our ability to enforce. For example, we have a reference to suspension or violation only after a fourth offense. We would like to work on some of these inconsistencies. And I would like to talk about the task force. We think the task force.
I apologize, but we just hit the 2-minute mark.
Okay, thank you very much.
And if you could please submit your testimony.
I'll submit it. Thank you, Chair Flores.
Thank you for working with Senator Doñate. Please, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Mike Cathcart, representing the city of Henderson. First, I'd like to thank the sponsor for being very gracious with his time to discuss our concerns with this bill, and we look forward to continuing that work after this hearing. The city of Henderson is opposed to Senate Bill 92 for several reasons, but I want to limit the testimony to a few of the big picture reasons. We're not necessarily opposed to small businesses that vend, but where and when those decisions are made about the regulations. First, the bill seems to set up very specific rules and regulations for sidewalk vending that we must implement. However, it also sets up a task force to look at the issue in the interim. It is our feeling that this process is backwards. We should be setting up a robust task force to study this issue and then make recommendations on how this activity can be done in a safe and legal manner in our community. Better to get it right the first time rather than to rush the process and not get the outcomes that are good for everyone. Second, the bill and the amendment prescribes that local governments need to adopt ordinances to allow for sidewalk vending. We would argue that we have had a path for legal vending in our current municipal code for decades. The city's mobile vending ordinance addresses all conveyances of vending, not just food trucks. It is our belief that if properly vetted by the health district, there is already a path for licensure in the city of Henderson. Another conflict with the city's current code is in Section 24 of the bill, which includes a schedule for issuing civil penalties. The city has already adopted Chapter 4.07 our alternative to criminal prosecution, which provides that business license compliance use civil penalties in all areas of business license enforcement. Chapter 4.07 also details how a civil penalty can be appealed to a hearing officer if the business believes they have a case for appeal. These hearing officers are not city employees and are attorneys from the community that have contacted us and wish to be put into our system as a hearing officer. We are opposed to having two sets of civil penalty standards. We want all businesses to be treated equally. And third, it is our city's contention that putting these rules in place should be done at the local level.
I apologize to cut you off. Thank you.
All righty, thank you,
And
sir.
please, if there was anything else you wanted to get on the record, if you could submit that to our staff. Whoever wishes to go next.
Thank you, Chair Flores, members of the Senate Committee on Government Affairs. For the record, my name is Leo Benavides with the City of North Las Vegas. That's Leobenavides. And I am here today to testify in opposition to SB 92. While we appreciate the work Senor Doñate has made with the conceptual amendment and the continued conversations that he is having with stakeholders, we still have concerns with the current language in regards to preemption. The bill prevents the city from limiting sidewalk vendors' operation to specific parts of the public right-of-way or specific areas. That's in Section 23, subsection 1. However, the city is in the best position to understand the specific conditions and needs in the city, including sidewalk space, local businesses, pedestrian traffic, safety issue, local events, and other issues that need to be considered in regulating sidewalk vending, which may necessarily include limiting operations to certain areas and specific parts of the right-of-way. These are conversations that can be further hammered out in the task force, where the different compositions of the cities and counties affected can be further looked at. And while we support the concept of the task force in order to bring best practices in Nevada to regulate sidewalk vendors, we are concerned that the current composition further limits local government's voice in that process, with only one seat guaranteed for all cities and counties. And that includes both the north and the south in that one seat. For these reasons, we are currently in opposition to SB 92 as written, and as I mentioned before, we continue to appreciate Senor Doñate for continuing to work with us as we look to find a resolution that will support all business types in North Las Vegas. Thank you.
And thank you. Please.
Nick Ciccone, City of Reno, Legislative Relations Program Manager. In the interest of time, I'd just like to ditto my city colleagues' comments on local government preemption and the ability to regulate sidewalk vendors at the local level, as well as the composition of the task force. Thank you very much.
And thank you. Welcome. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, for the record, Kelly Crompton representing the City of Las Vegas. We'd also like to echo some of the concerns that the local jurisdictions have made. We'd like to thank the bill sponsor for continuing to work with all stakeholders to ensure that the bill language proposed is manageable for local jurisdictions to implement these types of entrepreneurship within our cities while continuing to keep our shared constituents and communities safe. We continue to have concerns with the ability for street vendors to be in parity with similar small businesses such as brick and mortar businesses or food trucks and mobile vendors. We also share some of the concerns on the local jurisdictions representation within the task force. Southern Nevada is very different than Northern Nevada. Cities are very different than counties. We hope that as the task force comes to fruition and we work through some of these issues, that representation from multiple jurisdictions are part of the discussion and process. Thank you.
And thank you. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Warren Hardy representing the Urban Consortium, which is made up of the cities of Las Vegas, Henderson, Reno, and Sparks. I want to echo the comments with regard to Senator Donate's working with us. He spent countless hours working with us and hearing our concerns. And I'm here today in opposition because the rules require that we have to oppose if it's not written the way we agree with it. However, we are making progress on this. We do understand what Senator Donate is trying to accomplish here. We have questions. Our questions that remain are regarding process and procedure and where these things are best handled, and also definitional concerns and questions. And we look forward to continuing to work with the senator. And again, I want to publicly express my personal appreciation for how open he's been to working with us on this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you. Please, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Paul Moore, acting with the Vegas Chamber. First, Chamber would like to thank the bill sponsor and the stakeholders for meeting with us several times as we work through this bill. And we do believe we're making progress in the conversation that's related to the amendment that you saw presented today in Nellis. As you know, there is a numerous undertaking when you develop a new industry. There are multiple conversations as we regulate this that's balanced and fair. You have representatives from the business community, tourism, public safety, restaurants, health districts, entrepreneurs, and of course government entities. Our goal is to ensure a policy that is adopted that is safe, practical, and balanced with this emerging industry in our state and existing industries and, of course, local government regulations and ordinances. Specifically in the amendment, Section 9, subsection 2, we appreciate the efforts that have been done to address some of those concerns. We appreciate the work that's been done with Section 13 of the amendment regarding the business representation in this task force, and that will be oversighted by the Secretary of State's office. We believe that's an important development in those conversations. We also believe that striking merchandise and focusing on the food selling vendor components is also another part of that conversation. We appreciate that development also. And of course, creating businesses and establishments for non-gaming license, food establishments, entertainment districts, and convention centers, as you see in the mock-up amendment, are also significant progress in this conversation. Again, as I said, our goal is to continue to develop a bill that will ensure public safety and support an emerging industry in our community, and our hope is to move our position to neutral in the coming days and weeks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you for your testimony. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman, committee members. Lindsay Knox with McDonald Carano here representing the Nevada Restaurant Association. We want to thank Senator Doñate for working with all of us on this and in his amendment, including buffer zones for restaurants. Unfortunately, currently, we are still opposed. As restaurants must follow very stringent guidelines to food safety, we believe that that is also important when it comes to food vendors and public safety as well. So again, we look forward to working with him and hope that we can come neutral, similar to the chamber. Thank you.
And thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 92, either in Carson City or Las Vegas? Seeing none, BPS, do we have anybody on the phone?
If you would like to testify in opposition of SB 92, please press star 9 now on your phone to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers wishing to testify in opposition at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to testify in opposition here in Carson City? Seeing none, and just in the interest of fairness, because I did do this with support, if you didn't have an opportunity to testify in opposition but are here in opposition and you would like to just rise to be recognized, and we'll just put that on the record, either in Carson City or Las Vegas. Seeing none, at this time I'd like to invite those wishing to testify in the neutral position for Senate Bill 92. And we'll start with Carson City whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Flores and members of the committee. Bradley Mayer, representing the Southern Nevada Health District today, testifying in neutral. I, too, want to thank Senator Doñate for his work on this bill. He engaged us early in this process, continues to do so as we work through it. The provisions directly related to the health districts in this bill are something that came out of conversations with the senator. Those initial conversations and our provisions we can enact, those are specifically in regards to licensing those without an ID or driver's license and creating a payment plan for vendors to get licensed. Functionally now, SNHD does not criminalize the act of street food vending, and that will continue to be the case. When encountering an unlicensed vendor, food regulations are enforced and information is given to how vendors can come into compliance. Nothing in this bill right now currently restricts us from enforcing our existing food regulations that are designed to protect both tourists and residents, and we would ask for that to remain the case as this bill progresses. As somebody talked about some amendments, we also hope to have representation on the task force for both health districts. We look forward to kind of working with the senator as this continues, as this amendment sort of evolves, and we'll continue to work through it, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
And thank you. Whoever wishes to go next.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Cadence Matijevich, Cadencematijevich, and I have the privilege of representing Washoe County. We too are neutral on the bill and are appreciative of all the dialogue that has gone on with local governments on this issue. I do want to put on the record here our understanding of the provisions of the bill that begin in subsection 2 of Bill Section 9, beginning on page 4 at line 13 and continuing to page 5 through line 13, particularly as it relates, to existing Washoe County Code Chapter 25, 25.365 regulations. No street or alley shall be blocked by any merchandise offered for sale. A 2-foot passageway for pedestrians shall be left open, and merchandise shall be securely and adequately placed so that it will not endanger passersby or fall or extrude into any street or alley. Such sales shall not be operated in any manner which would create a nuisance or create a fire hazard. We do believe that that provision falls within the language of subsection 2 of Bill Section 9, and appreciate the opportunity to get that on the record.
And thank you. Welcome.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Flores and committee members. For the record, my name is Joelle Gutman Dodson, representing the Washoe County Health District. And first, I wanted to thank Senator Donyate for his willingness to work with us. I also wanted to express our appreciation for the intent of the bill. We are here, however, neutral today while we continue to work out some of the concerns we have with the bill. While we're here, I did want to put on the record that as of September 2022, Washoe County Health District is no longer issuing monetary fines, criminal or civil penalties to street food vendors found operating without a health permit. Our focus has always been on public health and the safety of our residents, and our food safety enforcement reflects the actions needed to ensure safe food is served to patrons. While our first priority is public health, we aim to provide outreach and education whenever possible and strive to be a partner with every county resident. We do really believe that addressing this issue in a task force is a great step towards lowering some barriers while maintaining the public health of the community. And we would really like to see a North and South Health District representation. Thank you.
And thank you. Anybody else wishing to testify in the neutral position for Senate Bill 92? I don't think I see anybody stepping up in Las Vegas. No one else in Carson. BPS, do we have anybody on the phone?
If you would like to testify neutral on SB 92, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good evening. My name is Cyrus Hojati, Cyrus Hojjaty. I'm very excited to hear about much necessary deregulation. Even I myself have thought about doing such activity. I do believe it should be more fair, so I do believe that other small businesses should be held at a similar standard. I would like more competition. But there are some issues I have with this bill. I believe that there's a lot of groups who are pushing this are disproportionately non-citizens or organizations who are representing them. And many of you people in charge have not told me, some of you have, about why we have such a high non-citizen unauthorized immigrant population. I'm concerned that this may be a flooding haven for the border crisis that we are right in. However, this will loosen the job competition that may come from it. There's many people that have told me many of these people who sell items have connections to drug cartels. And not to mention, many of these non-governmental organizations who are testifying, I've seen that they have been paid to come and do such a thing. And they are now talking about, well, during the so-called pandemic, the mass inflation, well, they bear some responsibility because they supported the politicians and the policies that allow these economic destructions, particularly the supply chains, to continue. Remember, track record matters. Other than that, I just hope you can make some revisions to this bill. Just hopefully it will not interfere and impede with traffic because, again, these are right-of-way places. And Other than that, I will yield my time. Interesting topic.
And thank you for calling in. BPS, anybody else wishing to join us via phone?
Chair, you have no more callers wishing to testify neutral at this time.
Thank you. And with that, if I could have Senator Doñate please come back. Any closing remarks you may have.
Thank you so much, Chair Flores. Senator Doñate, for the record. I do have a few remarks just to clear up or provide some clarity for the committee members before we adjourn this bill presentation. So first and foremost, I really do mean this. I want to thank all the stakeholders from the business community, from those on the Las Vegas Strip. And, you know, I think what we've seen so far, at least from behind the scenes, is we want to get there. We want to provide a good opportunity for our street food vendors with also respecting the brick and mortars. And I do believe within the next few weeks or even the next few days, we will come to an agreement. And that is my commitment before it comes for a work session if we get the opportunity to do so. You know, in regards to the penalties and so forth and the criminalization of street food vending, you know, this bill specifically looks at the act of street food vending. Nothing in this bill, you can read it as many times as you want. Nothing in this bill or in this section that we have created in this bill would exempt a sidewalk vendor from compliance with any other state laws or regulations and cannot be a defense to any other criminal act. We've heard discussions and false sentiments that, you know, what about if they're trespassing and so forth? There's already laws in place to protect that. There's concerns about human trafficking. There's already a law in place for that. There's a concern about selling alcohol or illicit merchandise and so forth. There's already laws to protect that. What this bill specifically looks at is the act of street food vending. And I refer to you to the personal story of my mom and my grandmother selling. And I believe them trying to make ends meet, selling tamales door to door, should not be criminalized. Full stop. That's pretty much the essential part of the mission of this bill. And, you know, to the recognition of opposition for this particular bill, I think many folks are coming to the same realization that I did, which was, if you don't allow them in the commercial areas and you don't allow them in the residential areas, then what's the solution that you have forward? Is it a full criminalization? We're never going to be able to fund enough of these resources as much as we say that we want to. I believe we should be proactive. And I think that in reality, you know, we did receive concerns and amendments of whether we were acting too fast. And I'm just going to say openly, I did not come to Carson City to pass task forces and studies. If there are solutions that we have seen in other states, let's take advantage of that now. Let's help the street food vendors that desperately need some support, at least in some effort. And Chair, to conclude my presentation, you know, earlier I mentioned the sentiment that I had the opportunity to visit with our health district folks. And we, of course, went to down by Valley High School and we interacted with 2 street food vendors. The first one was a repeat offender. The second one is probably the one that still impacts me today. And it gets me a little bit emotional because it's a real issue and I had the opportunity to do it and to witness it firsthand. While we were out there introducing ourselves and speaking to these street food vendors, I was the one that was translating on behalf of the health district workers. And while they were taking away the corn and other food items from him, and you know, they were trying to educate him, and I was the one that was translating, he was pleading and crying with the staff in some way effort, asking not to do this and that he promised that he would never do it again and that he would try his best not to repeat the encounter. He looked at me and he asked a question. If I was a state senator, why couldn't I do anything to help him right there? Why did I stand in the way? Why was the system broken to not allow folks like him to be protected? It was traumatizing and it was frustrating for both of us. And so that's why we're here today, to put an end to the brutal harassment that our street food vendors go through, to utilize my public health background to support and restore equity, to restore the economic opportunity for small businesses of what this country was founded upon, and to ensure that experiences like that never happen again. We have a long way to go to repair the broken relationship that we have caused with our government. Let's repair that by passing Senate Bill 92. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Senator. And I appreciate everybody working together on this again. And I know not everybody's going to get there, but I will echo the sentiment of Senator Doñate that it sounds very complicated, but street vending has been around for a very long time. It's all over the world. It's not rocket science. We've seen it before. There hasn't been a year in my life that I've existed on this planet that it wasn't something that was readily available to me when I walked outside of my home. I grew up seeing it every single day. It's right now happening in an unregulated manner. This is an opportunity for us to move away from this concept of keeping people in the shadows. It is very common. This is a question of should we have and should we collectively work as a state to bring folk outside from this concept that they have to operate in the shadows to feed their family? Or do we legitimize it? Do we create real standards? Do we create real rules? Do we make sure we know who's doing what? That way now we move away from this kind of shadow world of we don't know who's doing what. And at the same time, help the other side of it, which is, entrepreneurs take care of themselves. I really do think we can do this. I know it sounds scary. Other people have done it. It's happening all over the world. It's not that frightening. I promise you, y'all can do this. Let's work hard, and I appreciate everybody who came forward and brought your testimony. We have a lot of weeks, and we're going to get something good here. With that, we'll close out the hearing on Senate Bill 92. And next, I'd like to invite, please, Senator Goycochea, please. Oh, yes, Senator Goycochea unfortunately has to leave us, which is good for Senator Daley because now he can't bombard you with all his very intense questions. Next, we'll move on to Senate Bill 22. And I'd like to invite those wishing to testify in Las Vegas in support of these bills. I am concerned that we might lose the feed. In case we do, for Senate Bill 22 and Senate Bill 81, if you're in Las Vegas, remember that you can always call in. And you can still continue to participate remotely, even if we lose the feed. But I just wanted to preemptively let you know that that might happen. And again, thank you for all who participated. Please, Senate Bill 22, whenever you're ready. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Flores, members of the Senate Committee on Government Affairs. For the record, my name is Vincent Guthrow. I serve as the Executive Director of the Nevada Association of Counties, or NACO. Thank you for the opportunity this evening to present Senate Bill 22 on behalf of NACO, whose members are all of Nevada's 17 counties. I am here to present Senate Bill 22, and I wanted to let the committee know I'll be working off an amendment that should be on Nellis. We submitted that yesterday. And this amendment reflects extensive stakeholder engagement by NACO, specifically to the Nevada Press Association, and represents our best faith effort at addressing the concerns of these stakeholders. Should this bill be passed and local government were to utilize this option, the amendment would actually add an additional mandate to the local government entity if they choose. NACO views Senate Bill 22, this amendment, as a modernization of the law that requires posting of ordinances and legal notices by local government in accordance with NRS. Our members believe in transparency, but simply put, the requirement to meet the posting of notices solely via a paper of circulation has gummed up the wheels of local government and ultimately the people's business. For instance, in Carson City, which is Nevada's only consolidated municipality, they only have one current paper of circulation, and as papers shift deadlines, rely more on online delivery of our news, we believe this proposal will allow local governments the ability to continue to publish notices in accordance with the law and to make sure that the public will have access to local government information. Again, from Carson City, one of the problematic deadlines that we've encountered, and that's the reason for this bill. For instance, for Carson City, they note that reserving ad space by the Monday following a Thursday board meeting allows for a Wednesday publication, but that does not allow enough time for the full 10-day notice period to take place before the board may consider an ordinance on second reading. This pushes the second reading to the following meeting, and issues with this timing arise when the board directs substantial changes to be made during first reading of an ordinance, and there is not enough time to bring a revised draft back to the board within the required period to adopt an ordinance, while simultaneously complying with all noticing periods and ad space reservation deadlines set by the paper of circulation. This results in a proposed ordinance having to be resubmitted to the board on first hearing, thereby restarting the ordinance process from the beginning. This causes undue delays in adopting an ordinance and hampers the legislative powers of the Board of Supervisors. Again, under the amendment, local governments would still need to publish in a paper of circulation, but they could meet the NRS imposed deadlines by posting in an online source. This is the issue and the solution that we're proposing to modernize this statute, and we've incorporated some suggested changes by the Press Association. And to be clear, our intent is not to have the online publication of a notice be the sole replacement of that publication of a notice in a paper of circulation. We are also not intending to circumvent any noticing or government transparency laws. If anything, local government is adding to the posting of notices should they choose to utilize this option. So that, Mr. Chair, I thank you for the opportunity to present sort of the issue that we're trying to deal with. Happy to walk through the amendment if that works for the committee. All right, thank you. So before I outline the sections of our proposed changes, I again just want to let you know I'm working off an amendment. So this bill, this amendment proposes changes to NRS 238.030. So in section 1, subsection 1, this is just conforming language to introduce the enabling language that allows for the posting of a legal or public notice and the requirements by the newspaper for posting. So if you maintain, if we stay with section 1, in subsection 2, this language sets the parameters for a legal or public notice published via a website or online source, that it has to have the same information as a printed publication, and requires a newspaper to include information regarding the state or local government's address and telephone number. This allows an individual, if they choose, to request a hard copy of the notice from the governmental agency or entity. Under subsection 3, we provide a technical update to current law that as long as the entity seeking the notice submits this to the publisher, that the governmental agency is not responsible for any technical deficiencies, and that submitting the notice, as long as that is correct by the submitting agency, that satisfies the statutory requirement for posting. Simply put, we're proposing not to be held liable for any issues or deficiencies that are out of our control. The changes to section 1, again, subsection 5, this provides for the enabling language under this statute to allow for the publication of notices and that either media meets the current legal requirement for posting. Section 3 makes a conforming change regarding disruptions or deficiencies that are out of control of those submitting the notice for posting. Again, NACO engaged extensively with stakeholders on this issue in the interim, and we believe that our goal of allowing governments to operate will be met by the passing of this bill, and that is reflected in us adding options to publications, not replacing paper publication postings. So we appreciate that. Thank the Nevada Press Association for their engagement and their feedback on this issue. We believe this is a good faith effort on the part of our members to meet the noticing requirements that our communities have come to expect. With that, I stand for questions.
Senator Daley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for coming by and talking with me earlier, and I'm looking over the amendment. So I want to make sure I'm clear. I believe I heard you say, so your intent now with this is, if you can, you're just going to go with the regular newspaper, and the internet option may also be published at the same time as a backup. But if there's a tube block, if you will, or something that's doing the delay, you can put the internet or the website advertisement up, but you're still going to publish it in the newspaper when that can, or there's going to be a follow-up. So you're going to have both essentially as it allows. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, Vincent Guthrow, for the record, representing the Nevada Association of Counties, through you, Mr. Chair, to Senator Daley. That's a great summary of exactly what our intent is of this bill.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to make sure, because when I read it, it was a little more confusing than that, and I don't see that it's, both as clear as it might be. So hopefully when we get an amendment back from LCB, that it's going to be clear that you're only going to use the internet as a backup when the regular process of the printing it in the paper is not available, or if there's a publication process with some of the three times a week in Carson or whatever it is, that the internet would suffice in those situations, but it's still going to be published. I just want to be clear and make sure the language is clear on that as well.
Fair enough. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Senator Daley. So I think if you look at subsection 5, the deletion in the amendment of the "or" implies that we have to do both, at least from my opinion. We'll make sure it comes out that way, of course. But thank you. And Vincent Guthrow for the record.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? I think you addressed most of the concerns probably prior to the meeting even happening, so I appreciate all the legwork you've done in working with all the stakeholders. I don't think we have any additional questions for you. So with that, I'd like to invite those wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 22. Please come forward whenever you're ready. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon, or evening now, I suppose. Stephen Wood, for the record, representing Carson City. For the reasons that Vince just eloquently laid out, we are in support of SB 22. Appreciate your consideration and hope it passes. Thanks.
And thank you. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, Mary Walker, representing Douglas County, Lyon County, and Story County, and we do rise in support of SB 22 and very much appreciate all of NACO's work on this because this really does impact the rurals when our newspapers are periodic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good afternoon, welcome back.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Cadence Matievich, representing Washoe County. I will put a ditto on the record.
And thank you. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, David Cherry with the City of Henderson. I'd also like to echo the comments of my colleagues from local government and thank NACO for their work on this amendment.
And thank you. Anybody else wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 22? Seeing none. BPS, do we have anybody on the phone?
If you would like to testify in support of SB 22, please press star 9 now on your phone to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers wishing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you. And next, we'll invite those wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 22. If you could please come forward. And I don't believe I saw anybody registered in opposition. BPS, just in case. Anybody on the phone waiting to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 22?
If you would like to testify in opposition of SB 22, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits of 645, please continue.
Hi, my name is Daniel Rothberg, and I'm testifying as the president of the Nevada Press Association Board. Our volunteer board and membership represents print and digital news outlets across the state, small and large, rural and urban. The Press Association remains concerned about the language in SB 22, but we remain open to finding a solution to a problem many agencies face. In our discussions with NACO, we were told their intent was narrow, to utilize digital posting on a newspaper website only in limited circumstances and to retain existing statute for the printed publication of notices. However, we do not believe that the current language, including as amended, does that. The language appears to make sweeping changes by opening NRS 238 and creating a vague digital alternative to print notices, an action that could have major unintended consequences for our members. Papers across the state continue to provide a permanent, unalterable record that proper notice has been given before a government action or terminating a person's property rights. Printed notices are easily accessible to the general public, and they provide passive information which allows someone to find the notice while reading a paper, even if they are not searching for it. Without proper vetting and measures in place, digital-only publication does not always meet the same standard as print publication when it comes to establishing a permanent record for a local audience. We believe that the language in the bill, at a minimum, should be clarified to make it clear that digital publication on a newspaper website should be followed by printed publication. Finally, we remain concerned about the lack of specificity in the bill, particularly how the law would go about defining what is an appropriate online news outlet for the publication of a local legal notice. We want to ensure that legal notices continue to reach a local audience served by local news outlets, especially in rural areas where we have seen gaps in the local media ecosystem. We recognize that the media landscape is changing and that the way people consume news is changing as we, in recent years, have added more digital members to our ranks. but we believe that the interim would provide an opportunity for the Press Association to work internally and with interested groups to have honest conversations about policy solutions for making progress on this issue while also ensuring a viable future for local news. Thank you.
And thank you. BPS, anybody else wishing to join us in opposition for Senate Bill 22?
Chair, you have no more callers wishing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. And lastly, anybody wishing to testify in the neutral position for Senate Bill 22? Seeing none, BPS, anybody on the phone?
If you would like to testify neutral on SB 22, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers wishing to testify neutral at this time.
Thank you. And with that, any closing remarks you may have?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the committee for hearing the bill. I just want to make two comments about the opposition. We engaged stakeholders since September of last year. I understand that they are concerned about sort of a slippery slope. Again, this is not replacing the printed publication. This is actually adding to. This does meet our ability to continue to conduct local business, which we think is also in the people's business and interest. So again, thank you to the committee for hearing the bill, and I appreciate the time.
And thank you. With that, we'll close out the hearing on Senate Bill 22. And we will go to our final hearing, Senate Bill 81. Senator Daly, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Skip Daly representing Senate District 13 for the record. And sorry I missed the early part of your meeting here today. I had two other bills in growth and infrastructure and no opposition, but I think my record's going to end here today. So anyway, so SB 81 is a follow-up bill to a bill that was passed in 2019, AB 240. Which set up a similar program with the 5 counties to try to meet, give individual reports and then a joint report. Part of that, and I talked with a couple of the counties, and they tried to do good work, and many of them did, but it didn't get to where I was hoping to be with some of the recommendations and various things. And then we had COVID in between. We had a lot of other issues that were coming up. I wasn't here for part of that, so I didn't see some of the reports straight away or firsthand because they were only sent to legislators at the time. So when I went back and I reviewed what AB 240 was, looking for how come we didn't get to where we wanted to be, I thought to myself that maybe I missed the mark a little bit, which is why we tried to do this redraft here. So essentially what the bill does is requires the 5 counties, Washoe, Story, Douglas, and Carson, to meet twice a year, look at issues of regional concern, write a report from their county's perspective on those issues, and then write a joint report with recommendations to the legislature, and then send it to every legislator that represents a portion of any of those counties. So I tried to refine it a little bit to say, hey, recognize the positive impacts of whatever those things might be, recognize the negative impacts, and then try to give us some type of recommendations rather than just point fingers at each other. Now, I do know some of the opposition is going to come up. They're going to talk about the new language about putting legislators on there and voting strength. Willing to talk to all of the parties to try to resolve that. What I hope to do is foster not finger pointing or fighting. Collaboration is what I would hope to foster. Cooperation, Don't want people to feel like they're coming in and under fire, or people are going to try to pit each other against each other. That's not my goal, not what we're trying to get done. And I think there are at least some, things that we can hopefully come to agreement on, make recommendations back to the legislature if they need some help, or hopefully agree amongst themselves on how to move forward and cooperate. I know there are a variety of things. I saw some of the attachments in the on the webpage and various things about interlocal agreements. They already help each other, police and fire. There's some water agreements and various things that have been done. Not too much to address transportation, not too much to address housing, not too much to address several other major issues. And I don't know if we can, through this, address those, but I want to get as much input from the counties and the people and how they're being affected by the growth that is happening in the region and how to come to some resolution on that. So essentially the bill requires those 5 counties to come together with 2 legislators the way it's written and try to find ways to improve the relations and improve development or impacts from development region-wide rather than county by county. So that's the bill essentially. Final thing I'd like to say, Mr. Chair, before we get into some of the opposition and hopefully alleviate some of the questions, concerns that some people may have. What the bill is not a mechanism or a platform for one county to try to take money from another county because abatements are about to expire. Not what that's about, not what I want, and I'm not going to support that. I think it's a foolish idea to begin with. If it was something that should be done or could be done, I think Elko County would have done it to Eureka County a couple decades ago. All the mining revenue goes to Eureka. I'm sorry, Mr. Gokuchi is not here. All the revenue goes to Eureka, but all the impacts are in Elko. But that relationship benefits each other. And I think if anybody thinks that, we can do that, when I say we, Washoe County can do it to another county, I can count, and I'm wondering how come majority of the people in this building from Clark County couldn't do it to Washoe County or the state do it to any of the counties. So I think it's a foolish idea, and that's not what the bill does, and that's not my intent, and I don't support that idea. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Daly. I think maybe you can kind of speak a little bit more to it. I don't think everybody necessarily knows what happens when folk are getting together and writing these reports and making these recommendations, because I know concerns have been raised as to who should have voting power, but what are they voting for? And where's a recommendation that will obligate anybody to do anything? So if you could just walk us through that, because I think a lot of alarms have been raised and turned on, but I think maybe you could just walk us through what's happening now. Is there anything other than recommendations happening in these conversations? And the second part of it is, right now, as the law is written, can anybody bind anybody else to do anything through this specific section of the NRS that we're addressing now?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Skip Daly for the record. And then just a little point of clarification is we're not changing anything in NRS. This is a special act, as you may know. So what exactly happens in the deliberations or in the discussions on what might happen or not, I do not know. I wasn't there. There were no legislators there. The 5 counties did it. They wrote their reports. I know I saw the first few reports, and basically I got a report of what, for instance, Washoe County already does. Right? This is what we do. And I'm going, this isn't very useful. I know what you do already, right? And then the joint reports had a little more information in it. My view, not really. I don't want to use the wrong term and have anyone think that their work wasn't appreciated, because it was, but they weren't meaningful or substantial on some of the recommendations that might come. If there's a solution, and you can do it on your own, then hopefully they would do it. If there's a solution that would require some legislation or enabling legislation or some other actions, make that recommendation, and hopefully we can take it up or get a legislator to introduce a bill. My thought process on having legislator involvement, whether they vote or not, and like I said, open to that issue, it's the same thing, was hopefully steered a little bit more, asked some of the questions. If one county didn't want to offend another county by asking a question, I don't know, I wasn't there, then the legislator can ask the question on a regional basis more so. Right? And there's, limited number of the way it's written on who would be able to represent that district, at least from the north. But I want to try to build collaboration, eliminate confrontation. If that's an issue, then we'll work to alleviate those concerns. And just for instance, let me just say one example on transportation. If there was a deal we went forward, everybody knows that Interstate 80 between Reno and Fernley, there's any little hiccup, it's a hiccup on the road, it's a 2-hour delay to get out to the regional park out there. There are other ways, but you got to go all the way down to Carson, then come back in the back way, or if you're coming from Fernley, go all the way into Silver Springs and come in the back way. So it's not really a viable way. We know there's not enough money to, DOT doesn't have the funds to widen that road. It's like $1 billion, right? None of the counties individually have to do it. The road's entirely in Washoe County. I don't think it's in Washoe County's issue alone. So if there was, for instance, a recommendation that said, hey, we want to pool resources together, do whatever, and work more like a Washoe County RTC on a regional basis, pool some funds through gas tax or whatever it might be. If the other counties agreed to index their fuel tax on that as a recommendation, state would have to enable it. That would be a vote that, would be 4-1 at this point if Washoe was the only one that said yes, they're already indexed. But if the other 4 counties did want to help themselves, that's all in Washoe County anyway. Those are the recommendations where there would be a vote, and we would try to eliminate as much stuff as we could. That's just one issue. Housing costs have gone up, all over the region, Lyon County, Fernley. There are limiting factors on some of that development. So some of the people will come up and give you other reasons, but I want to try to eliminate confrontation if we can, eliminate, people trying to wonder what really is going on, et cetera, and build more collaboration. That would just be one example of something that could come back as a recommendation that we don't want to have. Would give everybody a little backup, if you will, on coming forward with something on a regional basis.
Sounds good. Members, any additional questions? Seeing none. With that, I'd like to invite those wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 81. If we can get one.
No.
I think Senator Daley has never had anyone support any of his bills, ever. Yeah, in this committee. Caveat. I've never seen it. I've never seen it. Just in case, BPS, do we have anybody joining us on the line wishing to support Senator Daley's Senate Bill 81?
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in support of Senate Bill 81, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers wishing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to invite the room to join me, those wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 81. And we'll just fill up the seats and we'll take turns. Whoever wishes to go first, please.
I'll go. We're getting punchy here in the evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chair Flores. For the record, my name is Vincent Guthrow. I serve as the Executive Director of the Nevada Association of Counties. We are opposed because we're concerned about a couple things from a collective county perspective. First off, we are opposed to having legislators and cities added to the list of voting members that would be proposed under this. First off, for this committee's edification, regional planning is a local government responsibility, best managed at the local level. It is not a municipal responsibility. And also the addition of legislators as voting members does seem just a tad problematic for us. Legislators being appointed are voting members of a committee creating a report that they will then be provided. So I think that is just a little bit confusing for us. I know we'll continue to work with the sponsor if we can. You know, we are neutral on the extension of the deadline for this working group, for what that's worth. And lastly, I just want to put on the record that NACO's members welcome and value city input and consultation as part of this working group, and they are already there and welcome to join and provide input. And we also value the input of our state legislators, but making them voting members of a committee that is addressing regional planning, a regional and therefore a county service, it just seems counterproductive and outside their scope of responsibility. So, thank you.
And thank you, please.
Chair Flores, Vice Chair Orchall, Senator Daley, and Senator Krasner, it's good to see you all. Thank you for the opportunity to express our thoughts on this bill. My name is Clay Mitchell. I'm the Vice Chair of the Story County Commission. And Senator Daley, I particularly appreciate your remarks and assurances in your introduction and your efforts on this bill. As a rule, when this legislature convenes every other year to conduct its business, we typically try to stay out of the way, but here we are again. And we are grateful for the chance to speak. My board, after much consideration, has unanimously decided to oppose SB 81 as written. We believe it to be unnecessary and frankly just a bit concerning. You'll hear from our county manager about the multitude of concrete ways that area jurisdictions already work together to address regional issues on a daily basis. Not only is this bill not needed, it introduces some troublesome separation of powers and efficiency of government issues that our team will also discuss. I have the pleasure of regularly working with my elected counterparts and the county managers in our neighboring jurisdictions in a variety of capacities. I'm confident in the ability and the skill of these county managers, elected commissioners, and statutory officers and their staffs. Based on what I have observed and experienced, I'm confident in their ability and willingness to work together productively to address the issues that we currently face, as well as any that may arise. And I would submit that they are best positioned and best qualified to address these issues without undue interference. The structures and methods for proper and accountable local governance are already in place, and our dedicated public servants in local government are up to the task. Thank you.
And thank you. Please welcome.
Chairman Flores, Austin Osborne, Story County Manager, AUSTIN, OSBORNE. And members of this committee, thank you for taking your time to visit with us. My name is Austin Osborne. I'm the Story County Manager. Senate Bill 81 is described as a bill causing the coordination of certain counties in northern Nevada on matters pertaining to regional growth. We really believe, however, that SB 81 is unnecessary. For authentic and meaningful regional collaboration already occur on a regular basis. This occurs every day, and I'll give you a few examples. Along the Interstate 80 corridor between Sparks and Lyon County, our fire district provides all EMS and fire response through mutual aid agreements and through automatic aid agreements. We're working on $20 million worth of flood projects, both in the north end of our county and the south end of our county, both of them abutting our neighboring counties, that we're working with those neighboring counties very closely with, and with regional organizations like the Carson Water Subconservancy District. We're also working and deregulated our ordinances and rewrote our master plan to address a regional issue being discussed, and that's housing. By just implementing what we have in place already, our housing population will go up 500%. We have the regional landfill that brings in garbage and medical waste from Reno, Sparks, Washoe, and 10 counties from the state of California. And there's a marquee regional project that I would like to highlight here, and this is the biggest one of northern Nevada recently. It is Our upstream jurisdictions, unfortunately, were having to discharge into the Truckee River nitrate-rich water that was not meeting EPA standards. They worked very hard to try to get that under control, and to fix it was going to be $150 million to rehab that plant for the ratepayers upstream. So what we did, and those jurisdictions as well, including Reno and Sparks and Washoe and NDOT, and the General Improvement District for Tri-Center and the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility and Story County all got together and fixed the problem. They contracted with each other to send affluent water to Story County through the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center to create advanced manufacturing jobs and technology jobs, types of careers that would never be supported in this area with the available water resources that existed before this project. It saved Reno, Sparks, Washoe ratepayers $150 million. And Story County committed $23 million into this project as well. Everybody benefited. This is an example. In each of these cases, the counties acted equally. They acted independently, and they solved regional problems. They were autonomous in doing so. And we really believe that this is how you get cooperation, is this cooperation is happening every day without intervention by the state, without intervention by legislative bodies and other mandates. We appreciate your understanding and your time with us. Thank you.
And thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, Mary Walker, representing Douglas, Lyon, and Story counties, 3 of the 5 counties included in SB 81. We do rise in opposition. Of great concern is the unequal treatment SB 81 gives particularly to rural counties. Under the existing AB 240, when making recommendations and writing the report, each county had an equal vote on those recommendations. SB 81 eliminates that equity between the 5 counties and instead adds legislators and cities as voting members, which upsets the equity and actually loads up voting representation in Washoe County to the disadvantage of the 4 rural counties. Under the existing law, AB 240, Washoe County receives 1 vote, but under SB 81, Washoe County would now receive 5 votes. Lyon County would receive 3, and the remaining 3 rural counties would only have 1 vote. We do not believe this is fair and equal treatment of the rural counties. There is concern SB 81 allows legislators to be voting members of a local government regional planning committee. These legislators would be voting on recommendations regarding local planning matters, and as such inserts legislators into the business of local government, which we believe goes against the separation of powers doctrine. Additionally, SB 81 includes cities as voting members of this regional planning committee. In 2019, AB 240, the cities were specifically not included as voting members because cities do not provide regional services. In 2019, the counties and cities agreed to include language that the counties in the region, in consultation with the cities in the region, shall prepare a joint report of the issues identified and any recommendations made to those issues. Therefore, the original AB 240 provided the cities the means to attend and participate in these regional meetings. In addition, having cities as voting members provides disproportionate voting membership, with Washoe and Lyon counties having 3 votes each and the remainder, Carson, Douglas, and Story, with only having 1 vote each. Because of these concerns, Douglas, Lyon, and Story counties oppose SB 81. We would sincerely appreciate your consideration of our concerns. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. For the record, Andrew Haskin, Lyon County Manager. I'm here today in opposition of Senate Bill 81. At the regularly scheduled meeting on February 16th, 2023, the Lyon County Board of Commissioners voted unanimously to oppose SB 81. The reporting requirements in SB 81 are time-consuming and unnecessary. The original time frame for the reporting requirements in AB 240, SB 81's predecessor, should remain in place and should be allowed to sunset as originally intended. The proposed language in SB 81 does not give the citizens of Lyon County or the citizens of Carson City and Douglas, Story, and Washoe counties an equal voice on the committee that will be preparing the annual report and making recommendations on regional planning issues. If passed, SB 81 will create an equity issue among the 5 counties listed in the bill. Washoe County and Lyon County are the only two counties included in the bill that have incorporated cities, each with 2. By adding cities into the language created by AB 240, SB 81 potentially gives 2 of the included counties additional say in any potential recommendations that are made to the legislature. These recommendations will have an impact on the entire region. There is further potential for inequity by adding legislators to the committee, as a legislator could be partial toward their home community. This could create more of an unbalance between counties and not provide an accurate representation of the actual state of affairs regarding regional growth. Each of the counties that are covered by SB 81 are very different. Each one has different strengths, different challenges, different growth and economic goals that they are working to achieve. What works for Lyon County doesn't always work in Carson City or Douglas County or Story County or Washoe County. For that reason, if these reporting requirements must continue, each county should have an identical seat at the table so that their concerns can be heard equally and that any potential recommendations aren't skewed towards one county's goals. Lyon County already works with all of our neighboring counties on varying issues. Senate Bill 81 has the potential to upset the balance and create a less collaborative environment. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Please.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Wes Henderson, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Lyon County Commission. As you've heard, we are opposed to this bill. Collaboration and coordination, it goes on continually between the counties in the region. I don't really believe that AB 240 was necessary when it was passed. However, it has worked, but I think it could sunset now. To flash back to when I was the director of League of Cities, I don't remember League of Cities, any of my members pushing to be involved in regional planning. They're more worried about their individual cities. And my last comment is that legislators steering the process of local planning is really kind of scary. Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be before you again.
It's great seeing you. Please, whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Helen Foley, and I am representing Story County. One of the issues I wanted to bring to your attention is in Section 1, Sub 2B. The old language was, after you see land use and transportation and public facilities, it says, makes recommendations regarding those issues, period. Now it would say, set forth recommendations that are intended to resolve any negative impact on those issues that are identified in the report. So now you have all of the cities that can pile up against the county, make the recommendations, and actually set forth what they want to happen. It's much stronger, and quite frankly, if you recall, in Clark County, many cities, the biggest cities in Nevada, there is no regional planning. Every city has its own planning. The county has its own planning. They took a look years ago at what Washoe County was doing and decided it wasn't for them. That's not the way they wanted it. And cities and counties have that authority to make those decisions for themselves. We want to make sure that all of these counties remain independent and that they aren't being forced to do things. When you see so effectively how the managers are currently working together, the county and the cities are working together to solve the problems up north. It's an exciting time for Northern Nevada. We are shifting what our economic vitality is all about. We've always just been gaming. We were always mining just before gaming, and now we've got something that is new and exciting and getting better all the time. And we want to make sure that it's handled properly and that counties remain independent. Thank you very much.
And thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Cadence Matievich, representing Washoe County. Washoe County is in opposition to the bill as introduced based on our legislative principle of resolving local issues at the local level. I would like to thank Senator Daley. He and I have had a number of discussions about this bill and our concern. And I do, I will say, I don't think his intent with this bill was to set up any, if I may, with a little levity, county-on-county county violence. And so we look forward to working with him on potential amendments to address the myriad of concerns that you have heard this evening. I would add to those, particularly if this multi-jurisdictional committee moves forward in any fashion, we would appreciate some structure as to who for each of these reporting periods would be the lead entity. As you've seen, you've got many entities involved. It just as we get together, we supply the report. We do think that the voting element may call into question open meeting law. There may need to then be noticing, minutes, those kinds of things, and who bears the responsibility of that, I think would be important to have documented in the legislation. And I thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Will Adler, for the record, representing Silver State Government Relations, representing Story County. I would first like to, ditto the comments by NACO and by both county managers, but also I would like to, thank Senator Daly for the time he spent and the communication he's, reached out to us in every way he could, actually, and he did come out to the county and talk to us, and we've spoken about this bill and sort of the intent of the first one and sort of his vision for going forward with this new measure here. Some of the base things that have been said before, but I do think are relevant is subsection 5 of section 1 on the back page there is just the content of each regional report will be approved by a simple majority vote. That's really the nexus of a lot of the concern, I think, around this, and that inclusion of all votes being equal to a county vote when counties are really the only regional entity that records impacts and has the top-down view for everything going on in a region. It is the county. It isn't the cities within it or the electeds who are over several counties or located strictly within one county, like Washoe specific electeds. But having said that, I would like to say, again, I don't believe the intent of this was to create, a bloodletting between counties, and that, there's some good conversation we've had about this. But overall, I do feel like the opposition is deserved from Story County's end, because at this juncture and looking at this, it does feel like that we would be outnumbered because we have no organized cities within our county, and other regions within this area do have 2 cities each, and we'd prefer to keep it at very least a county-to-county conversation. And we do think the Senator First Conversations is a desire to see some regional, planning and some regional, discussions, but those are happening today, and collaboratively, we're doing a very good job of that, and we'd appreciate knowing that going forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to testify in opposition, if you could please come forward. Good afternoon, evening, welcome.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Danny Thompson. Today I'm representing Chris Thompson, who is the project manager for the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. He's also the project manager for Trick 2, which is being constructed in Fernley, Nevada. And first of all, Mr. Chairman, I want to set the record straight that I testified just an hour ago in favor of 2 of Senator Daley's bills. And with all due respect, I have to testify in opposition to this bill today. We feel this bill is unnecessary. You talk about the need for cooperation among the counties and among municipalities there. I think that's already happening. And you heard the county manager mention the affluent water that now is going to be, instead of being dumped into the Truckee River, it's going to be piped to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center through an agreement that we made with Washoe County to be treated there and used within the facility. That issue alone saved ratepayers in Reno Sparks $150 million. And so there are other examples that historically have happened, and I think sometimes it's best to look back at that history. In about 2002, Reno was having trouble with their landfill, and they needed to bring it up to standard. There was an agreement struck with Story County to construct the landfill on 700 acres inside of Story County. And so today, all of the trash, including biomedical trash, goes to Story County and is disposed of there instead of in Washoe County. If you go further back, in 1998, when there was a need to increase the power capacity in northern Nevada, and specifically Reno and Sparks, the Tracy Power Plant was built wholly in Story County. It's a big facility. If you drive out I-80, you see that massive power plant. That's the Tracy facility. And on that property, there are 3 other generating stations that have been built there since that time. And so there has been cooperation on these really tough issues, because these are tough issues when you start talking about landfills and constructing landfills and wastewater and power plants that nobody wants in their backyard. These things have all been taken care of by mutual agreement with the parties. And I should have to tell you, as a resident, you know, I lived in Story County for 10 years. Both my sons went through junior high and high school and graduated from Story County High School. And you talk about needs and imbalances. There are no grocery stores in Story County, at least there wasn't when I was there. There was a mini mart at a gas station. There was one gas station. There's no tire shops, no car dealerships, no mechanics, no barber shops, no malls, everything that everybody else takes for granted. Literally everyone in Story County shops. They buy their school clothes, they buy their food, they buy their gasoline, they buy everything in Reno or Carson City. So is there imbalance? Yeah, there is. But I think if you're going to look at that, look at it honestly, because it's the other way around, quite honestly. As a resident, I'm just speaking as a resident, and the Story County has so many needs, things you take for granted, you know, sidewalks and gutters. There aren't any sidewalks and gutters in Story County. There are some in Lockwood. Most of the roads where I lived were all dirt roads. There was 2 paved roads in the Highlands. All of the fire equipment is used. And you know, my neighbor was one of the mechanics at the Story County facility that would take that military equipment they would buy, he'd refurbish it and turn it into firefighting apparatuses for the county. And so Little Story County has a lot of needs, but they're handling them. And I think through these cooperative agreements that we struck over the years historically, that this bill is unnecessary. Thank you.
And thank you. Welcome.
My name's Ernie Adler, and I represent the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe. Their objection really has to do with Section 3, where it discusses who the regional committee would consult with. And towards the bottom, it says that they may consult with Indian colony or tribes. That language should probably be mandatory, because Pyramid Lake has a large landmass within Washoe County. I mean, it's significant. And if there's going to be regional planning done, it should be in consultation with the Indian tribes. And Douglas County has a large Indian reservation with the Washoe tribe as well. So, I mean, these aren't insignificant landmass areas, and they need to be considered if people are going to be having discussions about regional planning and development of regional economies. The only other thing in 3, towards the end, it talks about consultation with a tribe, and I think they mean reservation, because a tribe is, people are members of tribes, and for instance, the Reno Sparks Indian Colony has Shoshone Indians and Paiute Indians and Washoe tribal members. So when you're talking about land masses, the colonies, the reservations are the land mass. The tribes are, I guess, not for a better word, ethnic groups, but so I think they really mean consultation with the reservation and colony, not the tribe. But that's my only other comment, that the tribes need to be considered if any kind of planning is going to be done.
Understood. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 81? BPS, do we have anybody joining us on the phone?
If you would like to testify in opposition of SB 81, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cyrus Hojati, Cyrus Hojjaty. I like to ditto everybody's comments that have been made about this planning proposal. As a person who lives in Clark County, I can recall that we had a Southern Nevada Regional Planning Coalition. This existed from 1999 to 2017, correct me if I'm wrong. And as a result, many of the members who came together, including former council member Michelle Fiore, found out that having this was quite useless. And there was no need for this. And all this was just basically talk and not much action. And, there has been efforts for decades to change the planning structure of the way things have been done for the last several decades. Talking about more pedestrian-friendly, transit-oriented areas. But here we are about 30 years and not much has changed. And there has been many opposition from these regional agencies all across the country, especially in California. They claim that they want your voice and support, but I've seen it, and many of the outcomes have been predetermined. And I understand there are many planning issues. In order to solve these planning issues, we have to look at the codes, regulations, zoning, and so forth. The fact is, one of the reasons why we have housing issues is because of barriers and a lot of other factors. Building. Not to mention there's so much consolidation in the development and financial industry. And another factor, of course, I don't see this addressing, are the arterials, the routes that are in between calm streets and freeways. These are typically 6-lane dividers, which they don't work. They're the heart of the problem. Not to mention that we have codes that make it difficult for mixed-use development to happen. So we've had these agencies, but from my recognition, they have not accomplished much. Now, we can have meetings, we can have special events, but I don't think a new agency has to be created, sort of like a shadow government. So we'd like you to not support this or make a few revisions at least. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. Anybody else wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 81?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Patrick Cates, C-A-T-E-S, County Manager for Douglas County. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person tonight. I had a minor medical procedure that has temporarily impacted my mobility. I thank you for the opportunity to testify remotely. The Douglas County Commission voted unanimously to oppose SB 81 at their last meeting. SB 81 is unnecessary and subordinates the authority of county commissions affected by this legislation. By adding incorporated cities and representatives of the legislature to make annual reports on regional planning, SB 81 diminishes and dilutes the equal voice of all residents in the affected counties. Under current law, Carson City, Douglas, Lyons, Story, and Washoe counties are equals in reporting on regional planning issues. Adding incorporated cities, of which Douglas County has none, unfairly weights the influence in the report, giving residents of some counties multiple representatives for the same issues. Adding legislators whose districts may cover only some portions of those counties also dilutes the influence of each county in that process. Douglas County already cooperates with our neighboring jurisdictions on development issues of common concern on a regular basis. For instance, in the area of transportation planning, we participate with both Carson City and Lyon County and the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, or CAMPO. For water issues, the county cooperates with Carson City, transporting water from Carson Valley to Carson City, and shares wastewater resources for developments bordering Carson City. These are just a few examples. There are more. In summary, SB 81 is unnecessary, given the existing cooperation among these jurisdictions. It's hard to understand the need for SB 81 and how it solves issues around regional planning. SB 81 is misguided by bringing incorporated cities and legislators into the process of regional planning, functions that are under the authority of counties under existing state law. For all these reasons, Douglas County respectfully asks the committee to consider our opposition to SB 81. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
And thank you for joining us. Anybody else wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 81 over the phone?
Chair, you have no more callers wishing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to invite those wishing to testify in the neutral position for Senate Bill 81. Seeing none in Carson City. BPS, do we have anybody over the phone?
If you would like to testify neutral on SB 81, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers wishing to testify neutral at this time.
Thank you. Senator Daly, any closing remarks you may have, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Skip Daly again for the record. I tried to write some notes down on some of the things that were brought up. We specifically went to county managers, city managers, so that we wouldn't have an open meeting law issue. I don't believe there's any open meeting law. We're not inviting elected officials, and they're not making those types of deliberations. In fact, we wanted to specifically have it so that you could have frank and open discussion. So I don't believe there's an open meeting law issue. Separation of powers is between the three branches of government. I don't think the separation of powers is a relevant issue at all in regard to inter-county, et cetera. We're not trying to take anything away from anybody's county. We're just saying you guys need to talk to each other. And frankly, the counties exist under the grace of the state, right? Cities as well. So I don't think there's a separation of powers. I learned from the testimony from Mr. Thompson that apparently nobody goes to Lyon County from Story County, and that Story County is primitive. I don't agree, but that's what I got from his testimony. There is some good work being done. There's some good work that's been done. Some of the issues that they brought up on the water and the pipeline into Story County. Like I said, they have interlocal agreements on police and fire and those types of things, and virtually everybody does. Sparks has it with Truckee Metals, Sparks has it with Reno, Washoe County, et cetera, all of that. When they say that they're already, working on, the county issue or the planning issues, or local government, this and that, and I would venture to say, and maybe someone can come talk to you later or whatever, that when a county or a city is looking at a land use planning issue in their county or their city, let's just stick with the counties, there is no cooperation. No county is conferred with another county about, well, how does it impact the schools? How does it impact this? Now, I want to try to stay away from some of those issues. I'd rather have it be a collaborative issue to say, how are we going to address those? But there is no agreement when it comes to regional planning on those types of issues and what is going to be built and how the impacts may affect the region. And how would we're going to build a new factory out in the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. What is that going to do to the traffic? What is that going to do to housing? None of those things are considered within the county. And I would hope that we'd have at least a discussion. There's going to be nothing binding on a county and this and that, but maybe there can be a recommendation. Maybe you can come up with an idea to say, how do we work together to address the issues? Final thing I have to say, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and you know me, I watch a lot of movies, right? So I'm assuming you guys have seen the movie Moneyball, right? And the manager, the A's at the time, it says, well, if so-and-so is a good hitter, why doesn't he hit good? So if everything is perfect and they're doing all of these things, why are things not perfect? So if there's no need, things should be perfect, and they are not.
And thank you for that. And with that, we'll close out the hearing on Senate Bill 81. And thank you all for your testimony. And I understand that you'll continue to work together. And I look forward to see if we can find some common ground. Before I move to public comment, members, we do have three committee BDRs that we have to introduce. As you know, this is not by you agreeing to introduce them. It doesn't mean you support the bill. This is just so that it goes through its regular procedural steps of being introduced at a committee. I'll go to the floor, get referred to the committee, and then we'll have a formal hearing on it, and then you can decide whether or not you agree with it or not. But with that, we have BDR 18898.
which revises provisions relating to government administration, BDR 20856, which revises provisions relating to taxes on transient lodging, and BDR 18899, which revises provisions governing the state boards and commissions. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to introduce all three BDRs.
Mr. Chair, moved. Second.
Vice Chair Orenshaw has moved for the introduction of all three BDRs. Senator Daly has seconded that motion. Members, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And last on our very long agenda for today is public comment. Are you here to join us for public comment? All right, great, welcome. Whenever you're ready, please state your name for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's Sherry Whalen, TRI General Improvement District General Manager for the record, SHARI WHALEN. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the committee today. The Tri-GID Board of Trustees has not had an opportunity to meet regarding SB 81, so I'm providing comments rather than taking a position on the bill today. Our regularly scheduled meeting is tomorrow. We only meet once a month. So on behalf of Tri-GID, I'd just like to highlight an important regional project that is being completed as we speak without the presence of a regional entity such as anticipated to be created under SB 81. As you know, Tri-GID is a local government created by Story County pursuant to NRS 381. The district operates the water and sewer utilities for the industrial and commercial businesses in and around the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. Currently, Tri-GID is central to one of the most regionally significant intergovernmental collaborations in Nevada history. Over $100 million in regional infrastructure is currently under construction, including a new 24-inch, 60-mile-long ductile iron pipeline effectively interconnecting the wastewater and reuse systems of the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility and the TRI General Improvement District. This new system is expected to be brought online within the next 9 months and is a direct result of years of intergovernmental problem-solving, planning, and ongoing cooperation between the TRI General Improvement District, the City of Reno, Sparks, Truckee Meadows Water Authority, Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility, and the State of Nevada. Under NRS 381, the Story County Board of County Commissioners acts as ex officio Board of Trustees of the district, and the record shows that the Board of Trustees has been extremely supportive of Tri-GID's continued collaboration with neighboring municipalities, including most recently approval of the Water Resource Exchange Agreement between Tri-GID, Tahoe Reno Industrial Center LLC, and the Truckee Meadows Water Authority. Our ongoing intergovernmental partnerships are making a new level of regional collaboration and interaction possible today organically. As always, Tri-GID is available at your convenience to discuss these issues in more detail and to answer any questions you may have. We've also attached a brief PowerPoint on the pipeline project and associated agreements in your agenda materials for today's meeting. Again, thank you for the opportunity to provide information for your consideration today.
And thank you for joining us. Anybody else wishing to join us for public comment? BPS, do we have anybody wishing to join us over the phone for public comment?
Chair, your public line is open and working, but you have no callers at this time.
And thank you. With that, thank you to our amazing staff for sitting through a very long day of hearings. Thank you for all the questions. This meeting's adjourned. Oh, but just for the record, I want to remind folk that we will not be meeting on Friday. Just want to make that abundantly clear.